colleagues on the select board, and we have other members of other committees here to talk about the ordinances and also the citizens petition. And so thank you all for coming. We have several people on Zoom too. We're just going to make certain that we can, it's really important. I remember, Sharon, thank you for texting me one of the times during one of these meetings, letting me know you couldn't hear people. Really important when you're on Zoom. If y'all are here live, if you could please stand up. Is that what you like? Tyler, stand up and come next to the owl. I promise it will not bite. And you won't get a pellet out of it, but that's okay. And so just speak loud so that folks on Zoom can hear y'all. And if you're on Zoom, please raise your hand. And if you're in person, please come forward and stand next to the owl. This meeting is recorded so that folks who can't make tonight's meeting will be able to hear the questions that you ask, the comments that you make, and those kinds of things that come up. And tonight's, after we have this public hearing, we are going to then go right into our select board meeting. And so that will go as long as it needs to go. There are copies, and Sarah Mancini, can you do the, yes, the Vanna White, thank you very much. Sarah Mancini is showing you where those copies are. Please feel free to take any of those copies. Thank you, Tyler, for pulling that all together. And we are gonna kick off tonight's, I'm gonna open the public hearing, and we'll kick off the public hearing with our newest proposed ordinance that hasn't gotten, has only been talked about very briefly. So although the working group has been hard at work for over a year on this. So Pat Burns and John Jones, if y'all want to come up, or just one of you want to come up and please talk about the purpose of the working waterfront ordinance and any highlights you think that are important to cover, Pat.
Okay.
And then you're going to be right here, buddy.
Okay.
And then sorry, I call it buddy. And then you'll be able to answer any questions if you would, please.
Right?
Okay, great. And we don't have a microphone, but I think that you can handle it.
I think you can. Everybody can hear me. All right.
Louder. Louder.
Oh, I just not.
Okay.
Hi. Has everybody read the ordinance? Yeah. I guess the easiest thing to do is probably tell you the genesis of where this came from some time ago. It's been in the works probably 14, 15 months.
Yes.
Something like that. It got spawned out of my work with the oyster group and aquafarming in general, as far as Georgetown is concerned, Hartswell, and other mid-coast communities, those that I'm most familiar with. When we started the aquafarming effort here, the reception, as you may recall, was pretty good. It's been now 10 years, highly successful. We have had one or two pushbacks. One, very interestingly, was a petition that was started not just about oyster farming, but in working waterfront work in general. And it was a petition started by somebody down in Five Islands, not to be named, to have lobster boats not be allowed to go out before 10 o'clock in the morning because they didn't like the sound. It was too noisy. That was followed up later by personal experience through the oyster farming group with riparian person right on the bay, who was a real thorn in my side, you know, for a long time, probably over a period of 4 or 5 years. And they would call the DMR almost on a regular basis, whether we were out there working during the day, sometimes on the weekend, as you may know, anybody who lives out on that side, Jeff, you can hear, you know, some work out there. And sometimes on a weekend. That gal did not like that. When she had parties, she did not want us to be out there. She did not want to hear us, see us, or see any lights at working. As you know, working waterfront is literally sometimes around the clock. It's just the way it works. She eventually decided to leave. Before she left, she and I had a meeting. And I asked her, nicely, because we never were too contentious, but she was, very difficult. I said, what happened? And she said, well, I can't live this way. And she said, and here's the kicker. If I had known before I moved here what it was like to live in Georgetown with lobster boats, oyster farming, clamors in my front yard, I would never have moved here. So she was not a supporter of aqua farming or a working waterfront in the town of Georgetown, anywhere she could see it. I ran into this in Harpswell and one or two other places. Same kind of difficulty. People wanting to bring Braintree, Mass to Georgetown. It doesn't work that way. You are entering a community that is a working waterfront, and we want you very much to love being here and to be a supporter of what a working waterfront stands for. When that happened, we decided we have to move forward to do something that was actionable, that you absolutely could get your arms around. Harpswell did a nice little statement. That's nice. So that they could tell people nicely that this is a working waterfront. But it didn't preclude them from taking any other steps. So what we decided to do is put something forward that had some teeth is the wrong word. This is not unity. It is FYI. For your information, like the school we have here, like all of the facilities that we have here, they are required to be fully exercised with a real estate client. About schools, what the traffic is like, what things are like here, so that they are moving into a community that they're familiar with. We decided that we should go forward with something stronger than a statement. Something that at every closing, real estate closing, that they are informed by rule, by the town of Georgetown, by ordinance, which is where Harpswell missed the boat. By ordinance, that the real estate agent is responsible, like they are, for a full disclosure of that this is a working waterfront and how it works. We drew up, I think, a very thorough draft. I think the lawyer thought very few corrections, actually. And at every closing, the working waterfront document from the Maine Aquaculture Association, which outlines what a working waterfront is, smells like, sounds like, and you will see is actually like. That way they'll know if they want to live here. Do they want to see these things? Do they want to be part of it? Most of it we want is supporting new owner in town, somebody who's going to support some of the things we ought to do. That's the genesis of it. It's the short story. It's 3 or 4 pages of legalese. The lawyer did a very good job. And I think that we have a very good ordinance that is now being bounced off of Harpswell and 2 other townships. I'll start with questions.
Do I need to stand up and say who I am?
Yeah, if you could please come up to the hour, Sharon,
We
thank
know
you.
who you are.
Well, shit, so folks can hear. Thank you, Sharon.
I also have a few comments, but if you don't want to hear them now, that's fine. My first question is, what percentage out of 1,000 people in the town are fishermen?
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
And why is that important?
Well, if we're
If
talking,
you have one working waterfront player here who pays taxes in this town, if we have one, they should be protected.
well, and I don't
Like we
disagree
have
with
you
that,
under religion.
but our lobster people come into the wharf. I have more things that I'd like to add, but if you want to wait, I can wait. I don't know. I mean, if we're gonna thousand.
No, I mean, go ahead and ask the
Yeah,
question.
please.
That's,
No,
yeah.
well, I have some statements to make, actually, and basically, I wanted to say good evening to everyone. I don't think the proposed ordinance was written really well. I think most of it's not enforceable. But then most of the ordinance in town are rarely enforced. That's the way I've seen it all the years I've lived here.
Can I pause on that? This is not to be enforced. It's not to be enforced.
What are you doing with the realtors then?
Their information. All
That's
they
not
have
the
to,
way it reads, though. It's
Yes,
basically, it's called buyer beware.
Yes.
It's not incumbent upon realtors to tell the clients it's a working waterfront.
I've talked to two realtors, and Post Silly in particular, probably the primary.
I know who
realtor
she
there,
is, yeah.
was a great realtor. She says this is part of their obligation and she's very happy to see it.
And I want to
Because
tell you,
they have the obligation to inform anyone that this is a working waterfront and what that means.
okay, let me finish.
Okay.
We've had clamors. The whole time we have lived in our home, and we enjoyed seeing the clamors, and they clammed it out. And now we don't see clamors anymore. However, we own the property since 81. And I really never thought that, I would have to put up no trespassing signs. However, due to the language, in your definitions, which states included in these working waterfronts are the footpaths necessary to get to those mud flats. To me, this opens the door for people to drive down my road and pull off to the side and make a footpath if they so desire. So, if
Oh,
this,
no, they can't.
well, this is why, if anything, if the ordinance passes, I will put up no trespassing signs, and I never thought from 1981 I would ever have to do that. And I would like to make that known that that's the way I feel.
Sharon, just to make you feel better, this refers only to those already used paths. They're not gonna make new paths. That is not necessary. If that should be tried, then you have every right to talk about a trespass. That's your
Alright.
property, and it's never on private property without permission. That's the law.
All right, but I'm just letting
And
you know
need to
that
own up
people
on that.
walk
Say something.
through our yard, even when we were building, people walk through our yard. Now, I grant you, it's
That's
not
your
happening now, but, yeah, it upsets me a great deal that this might open up, I hate to use this, a can of worms, sorry. I'm sorry.
It's appropriate.
But thank you for listening to me. Yeah, I'm not over the moon about this ordinance. Thank you so much.
That's good. And points well taken. Yeah, I got that.
Okay, great. And if we can not, I know it's hard, if we can not talk over each other just because it's being recorded, we want to make sure to hear folks. And so we'll let one person, talk at a time, please, and not interrupt each other. Come on up, Diane, please.
And if you actually go to where the blue X is right there, Diane.
Sorry,
on
my
the
legs
board,
are whacked.
If you get too close to the owl, folks won't see you. Just party, you. So
Am I close enough?
if,
There's an X here.
See-
That's right there, Diane.
Diane,
Yeah, right here. Right here. You come right here, you'll be in a great space. Come right there? Yeah, that sounds good.
Good.
I was
Okay.
invited us there.
All right. There's a couple things I want to address about the concept of the working waterfront. First, Sharon, the men that have been lobstermen, it's not how many, it's the generations of lobstermen that have been here. And there have been many, many generations. And you don't see them, but there are 63 lobstermen on the island. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean they don't exist. And I take that personally because I'm on the side of the lobster when it comes to their rights on water.
Diane.
Their rights on the water,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's really, that's part of the waterfront, not just what you're doing, the lobster east waterfront.
So I would just ask, and I'm gonna interject here, that when folks are offering their thoughts,
Yeah,
we're not gonna rebut other people by
Okay.
name. That's happened in some other meetings and it
Okay.
left folks not feeling well. So
all right, so that was Karen,
Thanks, Tyler.
but I just mean, I don't want to hear saying that nobody knows how long the lobstermen are there or how many boats they have. There are plenty of lobstermen, and just because you don't see them, doesn't mean they don't exist. And I can use the Pinkham family as one example of a family that has done it for many, many generations.
Thank you, Diane. All right, Dave, come on up, please. There's the X date, got it.
Okay,
I am from.
David Teller here.
Hi, David.
Just with respect to the people who wrote this, I'm not really concerned so much about the working waterfront and it being here and people, I love having the boats come down and go. That's not the issue. The issue is we're defining a declaration and a non-enforceable set of information in something that's called an ordinance. An ordinance is a rule by definition. It is not a declaration. So ordinances are things you must follow. They have penalties. This is not that. This should be something else. Maybe it's a proclamation. Maybe it's an initiative. I'm not against having the pamphlets, having voluntarily people do things, but it's not an ordinance, okay, by definition, my opinion. Thank you.
That's unfortunate, David. Legal went over this and they definitely agree it's a declaration.
A declaration, not an ordinance. This says ordinance.
Declaration, ordinance, same thing.
No, it's not. A declaration says, my name is David Fetter. That's a declaration. I'm not making it a rule. I'm not gonna enforce it. If you don't call me by that name, I'm not going to have a penalty.
I think we should bounce it off of legal.
I think it's,
Make a good point.
I'm not against the principle of having the waterfront issue. We just shouldn't have another law about it. It's not a law. That's all. It's not a law. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else, yes.
I'm not gonna come up front. I just think it's up to the person buying the house, the land, for them to get their own information
Thank you.
without having to make an ordinance. I'm Darla Russell.
I thought.
And Darla Russell, in the next time, we appreciate if you would come to the X, because folks want to hear your great thoughts,
All right.
especially on YouTube, all of our listeners.
I'm coming up, Tiffany, I can see you heading up, come on, I just see you. Okay,
Hi there, Tiffany Dumas.
Hi,
I
Tiffany.
definitely support lobstermen and the generations that are here. I just find it very difficult to enforce something maybe in front of realtors and things that has to be enforced before you at the understanding of buying a home, I'm going to sign this paper knowing, then how are we going to legally do anything about it?
Don't have to do anything.
Okay, so is there a repercussion for somebody that comes back to you respectively and says, my realtor didn't tell me a thing about this and I am upset. I bought a $3 million property and there's clam diggers and there's oyster farmers and there's this and that.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Right,
She told us she was not informed that it was a working waterfront, and she felt.
Yeah.
Other than litigating,
yeah,
which she had threatened to do,
yeah,
which is the piece that I really haven't talked too much about here. If this is properly executed, not enforced,
yeah,
this keeps us from getting into a lot of the litigation that we are seeing in the rest of the coast.
but
If somebody doesn't like oyster farming or clammers,
sure,
their place, they're suing. That puts the town in an interesting position. If they sue, for example, who are they gonna sue?
well,
They're gonna sue the town.
right, but what,
But if before that,
Yeah.
I'm just explaining.
yeah, no, no.
If before that they have been informed, FYI, and in the meeting. And by the way, the Realtor group is going to be, all this is going to be posted on the main Realty website. That Georgetown is a working waterfront community and you need to be made aware. Buyer beware has a terrible connotation. It means that if you come in here and we have not informed you and you're upset and you decide to move because of that, that's pretty extreme. However, in another case down the coast, they sued. Guess what happened? Everybody spent a lot of money finding out that they didn't have a leg to stand, but you had to sue. If we do this, and we say up front, according to the lawyer, we have informed you, we've notified you, all the realtors have been notified. FYI, it's a working waterfront community. Now, if we Can we enforce it? No. But we can defend ourselves. Because once they agree, down the line, the judge says, were you made aware that this was a working waterfront community? Hadn't been once. They said no.
Just playing out devil's
No,
advocate
please.
here. What if something falls through the cracks and they didn't sign the paper? I'm sorry, I wasn't made aware, I didn't make this note,
They
it
don't
wasn't
sign.
made to know. And then
They don't have.
we're on the
to sign
hook.
anything. They don't sign anything.
But we're on the hook as a town to say, oh, well, they should have been made aware, and so-and-so just bought their $3 million house and they weren't made aware.
That's why we're trying to put it on the realtors.
Well,
It's
mistakes,
realtor is to who this goes back to,
mistakes,
not the town, and that's, you hit it right on the head. This is to protect the town.
I understand that you're trying to protect the town, and I think it's a great thing to protect the working waterfront and all that work here. But I think you're exposing the town to a liability of saying this needed to be done through the realtors, and if something happens and something goes amiss, then the town is on the hook to have had to educate an actual buyer of something that's very apparent when you look out your window and see a lobster boat.
Have you read the ordinance?
I'm just saying, I
Have
think
you
it
read the
exposed, I've
ordinance?
read most of it.
In here, it says very clearly that the realtor is responsible, not the town.
And
Well,
thankfully, we do have a realtor that's about to jump in when you're done, Tiffany, to offer some of their thoughts.
I just also think that this is Georgetown, Maine. And maybe we should give this a few years to watch other people pave the way, because we are small. And I think there could be more repercussions than what small Georgetown, Maine has to offer.
Tiffany, I appreciate your point of view. Thank you.
And Jesse Graham,
Jesse?
Jesse Graham is on Zoom and Kathy Walter will be up next.
Okay.
So Jesse, if you want to unmute yourself,
Can you hear
And-
me okay?
Yeah.
put your video on as well if possible. So
I
folks-
can. It's a bad hair day though.
That's all.
Hi, everyone. I know I spoke about this earlier, and I'm just still curious how realtors are going to be required to talk about Georgetown as a working waterfront. Because we have real estate agents from all over the state that come to Georgetown, and I personally go to all towns all over the state, and we don't have a requirement to do anything with any town that I know of. So I just want to make sure I understand what how the state or the real estate agencies are going to be required to talk about Georgetown as a working waterfront.
They're not.
Yeah.
Okay. So that to me was part of the question of,
What
I
happened-
agree with the person before who talked about this as a proclamation, perhaps. That makes to me more sense than an ordinance, because there isn't anything that can be enforced.
Well, if you go back once again, as Silly said, it is part of your responsibility if a town has an ordinance or any other law to inform any buyer of its existence. That's in the real estate law, as she was educating me. And what this does is it really closes the door later on to any litigation that we might face one way or another. Maybe we'll never face it. But the one time we do could be millions. And this town can't afford anything like that, nor does it need to. If you can do a simple, for your information, exchange of information at the time of the point of sale, saying, oh, by the way, on our real estate website, you do know, if you haven't read it, that this is a working waterfront community, and you are going to hear lobster boats, you're going to smell bait, you're going to see clamors and sometimes places you don't like it, but that's not your front yard.
say I didn't like it.
I'm saying that, you're gonna see clamors and wormers and that sort of thing. And they're gonna be in what you might think is your front yard. And that's one other thing this ordinance will do, is it clearly defines.
Turn off.
Pardon? It clearly defines what the responsibilities are. In other words, it also tells you where your front yard is. It says very clearly that this is where the front yard ends. So if a clamor is beyond that and in his right of way, can't do anything about it. It's the law, and we repeated the law in here for that reason. Yes, ma'am.
I think we had.
Can I finish my turn?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jesse, and then I think next is Kathy, and we can come back. to
Okay.
you.
You referred to a website that
Yes.
this will be posted on. What website is that?
Post suggested that we put it on the main state real
Okay.
estate site.
Okay, so I just personally, I know who Poe is. I think Poe has her own experience, but I would encourage this to if you're going to go in the direction of an ordinance, I would encourage the town to go and talk to the Maine Association of Realtors directly,
That's a
because
great idea.
this doesn't sound like anything that resonates for the kind of work our clients are required to do due diligence, which requires them to go to the town and check ordinances and check permits and all that kind of stuff. We are not mandated by anyone to make sure everyone knows every ordinance in every town. I feel like that's what you're saying, so I just want to be really clear. We are required to support our clients in finding out information, but we can't possibly know every ordinance in every town. So I just want to make sure that that's kind of clear for people, and that the Maine Association of Realtors, they have attorneys that look at this work. They train us and tell us what's required. Poe has her own experience, and I live here. I tell people all the time we're a working waterfront. I live in Five Islands, but I'm not required to go to any other town and find out if they're designated a working waterfront.
Well, it's interesting. When I bought here, nobody told me to go look at the town ordinances. I have
Well,
never.
that's
Bless your
well,
heart if you.
I always tell my clients to do that if they're thinking about it. Just depends on what people want. If they want to build a new addition on a house they're buying, well, yeah, they've got to go figure out the setbacks and all that stuff. But it's really not, and a lot of our ordinances are just there for people to have when they need them, not really to tell people how to buy their house.
It's exactly what this is here for. This is when we need it. But if the information without penalty or forcing them to sign something can be communicated at the point of sale, as you would communicate about the schools, the churches, how the taxes work in the town, that sort of thing, that is your responsibility. Buyer beware is a very, very narrow, nasty term. And that lets people off the hook, and we don't feel like we should do that.
So next up is Kathy Walter and then Lisa Sabatine before we go to the second round of speaking, but you're on the list, Diane.
Okay.
Kathy Walter, if you could,
Wrong name. Sorry, I'm not sure I'm getting an echo. Are you guys hearing an echo?
Feedback. If there's a second computer, Tyler, they should mute that person.
right. Now there's nothing, but you may have done something.
While he's sorting this out, I really want to come back to this enforceable thing. That's not what it's about. It's not punitive. It's not what it's about. This is about information willingly and openly shared with any buyer coming into the town. That's all it's about. If long term, and let's say we've taken the steps. Our realtor friends have informed everybody, everything is fine. Yet somebody comes forward because of one reason or another and decides that they are going to initiate litigation. I work a lot along the Mid-Coast. I work a lot with Dana Morse at the University of Maine and Seagrant. And we run into this all the time. Suits that are really petty. They're almost personal. And they happen to come up over things like how close they're clamming, how close they're doing aqua farming, whatever it may be. And they often claim that they never intended for this to, they never thought that this would happen. If we can make sure at the vertex of the purchase angle that everybody is informed that this is a working waterfront, this is what you can expect to see. If you have a problem with that, maybe this isn't for you. If you don't have a problem, welcome aboard, and everything goes forward.
And while Gert and Kathy end up resolving their mic issues, I think Lisa is up at the X.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi. First, let me say, I am 100% in support of working people here in this town, working waterfront in this town. I love it. It's one of the things I love the most about this town, probably. But I do have an issue with calling this an ordinance. The definition of a proclamation is a formal public announcement that serves to declare or announce something of significance, typically related to national or public interest. Proclamations can carry legal weight and are distinct from executive orders, as they are primarily used for public communication rather than direct governance actions. I think that completely describes what this is versus an ordinance, which is a local law enacted by a municipality or a county. It governs specific matters within a local jurisdiction, such as zoning or public safety and administrative procedures. Ordinances are typically created to regulate behavior, enforce standards, manage community issues, and violating an ordinance may result in penalties or fines. There are none of those things in this document that is proposed. So I really support what others have said. This is a proclamation. I also support what Jesse says. It's not possible for a realtor to know all of the ordinances in every town. I mean, it's lovely if they do. It's lovely if they advise their clients, but they can't. It's not possible. And I do think some of the ownership, when you buy a piece of property, is on the owner. I sold a piece of property once in Turner. They wanted to put in an apartment downstairs. The buyer went to the town, found out they couldn't, and backed out of the sale. It's their responsibility. Some of these people have to have some responsibility when they come into town. I understand that there's always going to be somebody that litigates, because that's what we do these days. We can't protect against all of that. And this does not serve a purpose because it has no teeth. So why not call it a proclamation? The other thing that concerns me is that section 5B under definitions, the last line, when it talks about the mudflats, the shellfish, those things, it says the town reiterates the significance of this important fact because public perception and awareness determine what level of working waterfront protection and private owner cooperation may be maintained or newly implemented in the town. What the heck does that mean?
I don't know, the lawyer put it in.
Well, I don't, then somebody should be able to explain it to us, because I'm assuming I have property with waterfront. I want to know what that means before I vote on this ordinance. Does this mean that I am going to, at some point, be required to allow people? I allow people now happily. But if they're gonna leave beer cans, or they're gonna slop up my property, or they're gonna act in
No,
inappropriate ways, I'm gonna say no.
You're right, that's not what it's.
I think that's right, but this says owner cooperation may be maintained or newly implemented in town. What does that mean? I wanna know if we're gonna approve an ordinance, I want to know what it means.
Oh, that's a good point. We should go back
Yeah.
Because I think we should definitely clarify.
My understanding from the working water group meetings that included Marissa McMahon, John Jones, who's here.
Yeah.
Pat, forgetting somebody else. I guess it was primarily the three. Say that again. Mike Farina, thank you. I knew I was forgetting somebody.
John Pence.
Yeah, John, hence, is that the intention was that the private owners, that it would be up to them to
That's right.
continue allowing people onto their property or not allowing.
Or opening it up to them.
And that was the
Enough.
discussion at your original hearing for this, that it was going to be a gentleman's agreement between, but that's not what this says, so I wanna know what this
I
says.
think you're right.
And I
that
do-
needs to be clarified.
Urge you to consider calling this a proclamation and not an ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Are we ready with, Gert and Kathy?
Their hand is not up. I see their video is gone. Gert, can you hear us? Kathy, can you hear us? If not, I know that Diane wanted a second bite at the apple, but Jeff Birdsell and there was some ahead of you, Diane, so thank you for your patience. Dealer's choice on who wants to come up. I think you're on the outside, Jeff, so come on down. And Bob, you're up next.
Well, I also support this being a proclamation. One of the things that was mentioned was the legality of the issue. All of these working waterfronts, lobstermen, clammers, oystermen, they're all licensed by the state or fed. The only group that are not licensed or regulated in any way are the wormers. And they tend to be the most problematic as somebody who allows people to cross.
I got you.
So, I know Bronwyn was in support of this being a proclamation. I don't really see this ordinance as delay any lawsuits. People, as we know, are litigious and will sue for any reason whatsoever. And it seems ambiguous. That's about all I have to say.
Okay.
And I see Gert's hand was back up, so Gert,
I'm,
go ahead,
I
Gert.
can't figure this out. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. Sorry about the mix-up. I'll try to be quick. It's not clear to me what the responsibilities are of the real estate agents, and how you're going to get hundreds of them to be aware of this ordinance. But one thing that may actually achieve a lot of this is just a sign at 127 when people drive into Georgetown that says we're working waterfront, have this ordinance or proclamation or whatever, and then they have been notified that it exists, and then it's their responsibility to look on the website or ask a real estate agent about it.
I think I asked you a question. Should we put all the school information on a sign? Should we put all of the church and fire department information on a sign? Can you speak up, please? I said, I'm sorry, should we put any information about the town on a sign out front? No, we shouldn't.
All right, any other questions? Do we have any on Zoom? Any more for Pat? Oh, Diane, I'm sorry.
And I know that Bob has been.
No, I do,
Well, no, Bob has been waiting patiently.
I'm just trying to. It's just clarification.
Several items. When I read this, I get the impression that the fishing community is being downtrodden and not looked at respectfully, and you're trying to prevent them from being unjustly accused of things. And I don't understand that. In paragraph 3, subparagraph H, they say to establish the town will protect commercial fishing and harvesting activities from changes in the town's ordinances that could negatively impact their successful operations. When does that ever happen?
Never. But I know of.
Why is it in
How long
there?
have I been there?
What's going
You
on?
make a good point. There's a couple of these things that we are in the process now of going back and looking at with the lawyer, decided to put in here. And we are going to like tune it up, frankly, based on this feedback. We're gonna go back and tune it up again.
Okay.
So all good points and well taken.
Right, under 4, notification to residents and businesses. Signage shall be conspicuously placed in proximity to the town border stating that Georgetown is a working waterfront community. Similar signage will be placed at the town office, town landing, town wharf, local boatyards, marinas, and other town public spaces as determined by the select board or their designees. Who pays?
Once again, we said a nice sign at the entrance of the town was exactly what we wanted. This came back with some additions,
Okay,
and I
well,
think that's a good point.
but
I
this
don't
is what
see
this
why
is what you're presenting, okay?
Yeah.
So my question is, who pays for the signage? Is that the taxpayers or is that the working waterfront people? How many signs? If you look at this, it starts off, it looks like 4 signs. One at the town border, one at the town office, one in town landing, one at the town wharf. But then it goes on to say the local boatyard, marinas, and other public places.
it's
And
over.
that's, you know, an unknown quantity.
It's overkill, I think.
So, you know, who installs the signs and who's responsible for maintaining them?
Oh, we have yet to decide on that, you know, that will get not in my pocket. But whatever we decide, I think that's too many, frankly. We need one indicator at the beginning of the town line. That's the, as far as I'm concerned. But we would like to revisit that. I think it's a good point.
Okay, the definitions, working waterfront. It says the town intentionally defines the term more broadly in consideration of how the public perceives working waterfronts. I'm not sure I understand the intention of that.
Okay.
And then the business about the footpaths. A little bit of history. I've owned property here since 1981.
Mhm.
That's 45 years. We moved up here in 98 and started building our house. And we've lived in the house since July 4th weekend of 2000. So we've lived in that house. We're coming up on 26 years. When we first moved in, the first weekend that I was living in my house, woke up, look out the bedroom window. There's this guy walking through my backyard.
Yeah.
I told him I didn't think he should be there. Politely. Maybe. I've had people park on my road. It's a private road. It's a dirt road. It's a one-lane road. If you park in the road, you block the whole road. So you can't get in, you can't get out. But the eye opener, if you will. We went away for a weekend. Visit my parents down in New York. We came back in. We're driving up the road. And we're going. You smell smoke? Yeah, I smell smoke. Where is it coming from? We couldn't find it. We went down to the house. About 20, 30 minutes later, somebody showed up at the house from the Historical Society to give me some paperwork. And they said the same thing. I said, well, as you go out, you know, kind of keep your eye open and let them know if you see anything. 10 minutes later, they were back. They found the source of the smell of smoke. And it was a fire. They took us up there, showed us, and in the woods was a 50-foot diameter circle. It had been all burnt, and it was still smoldering. I called up Dave Canaver. He and I went over to the fire station. We got tank 2, came down the road and put several hundred gallons of water on this thing, put it out. While we were gone, Well, I was going to get that tanker. My wife Sharon was investigating. In the very center of that burnt area was a cigarette butt. It was flattened. I'll give the person credit. They had good intentions. They stepped on it. But it's like a sponge. Unless you take a cigarette butt and break it open and put everything out, you're not going to completely put it out. And that's what caused the fire. The only people that came down there that used that particular area were workers. So I'm very sensitive to this business where it says, included in these working waterfronts are the footpaths necessary to get to those mudflats. That can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. It sounds to me like what you're saying, and I don't think that's the intention. That anybody that has a planning license, a license to dig worms, or if you say in here recreational fishing that wants to go down to the waterfront and recreational fish, has the right to come on my property and go down to the waterfront.
I don't.
Like I said, I don't think that's your intention, but this needs definitely.
And it needs to, if you get that impression, Bob, then it should be reworked to say very clearly, you know, the current paths are the current paths. If an individual wants to make a separate agreement, as some of us have, by the way, that, you know, Chad or anybody else can go down and either plan or go to the oyster pits, then that arrangement might even be recommended to be done in writing.
But the general population that I have run into does not do that. They don't come and ask. And I have signs. There was a sign on a road that was there before I ever moved in. It said, private roads turn here. I can't tell you how many people disregard it.
We get the same thing.
I have a sign that says, no access without permission, and there's a phone number there. Call me and ask me. And it's not just normers and planners. There are other groups that do it as well. The first year I was building my house, the very first hunting season. First day of hunting season, we said we'd go in a little bit later because we knew people were running around with guns and they were getting settled and everything.
Yeah.
We get to the gate on our road. And there's a truck parked in front of the gate. We can't get to our house. We picked our tools up, walked down to the house, worked all morning long. It was time to have lunch. We walked back up to the truck. Got to the top of the driveway and looked to my left, and here's this guy standing there, proudly dressed in orange, holding his rifle. I walked up to him and I said, who might you be? He looks at me, stands very proudly, holding his gun, says, well, who might you be? I said, I happen to be the owner of the property that you're standing on. The next words out of his mouth were, I don't own the truck that's in front of your gate.
What?
I don't own the truck that's in front of your gate. They're not blocking my gate. So it's not, you know, I don't have anything against the working waterfront. From the time I was 5 years old, I've dug clams. I've caught scallops. I've got caught crabs. I've trapped eels, you know, all of this stuff. Picked up squid eel, taken home, weeded them. That's my background. That's what I've always done. I've been on the waterfront my entire life. My career was in the water.
Got it.
So I don't have anything against the people that are working and busting their butts, pulling lobster pots. I don't care if they start up their engines at 4 o'clock in the morning. They're working. That's what it is. But this piece of paper, I'm sorry, I have a hard time with it. And, and I've written a lot of ordinances for the town. And I have never once written anything that's detrimental to the working waterfront.
That's good to hear. Yes.
Thank you, Bob.
All points will take it.
So we have two more folks, and I would just advise, we can keep going as long as folks want, but at the speed we're going, an hour on ordinance, we'll be here until 11. That said, Diane had some second thoughts. Thank you, Bob. I know I'm hunting this year. And then Jesse Graham is last on the list for this ordinance, unless someone else is getting ready.
Okay. Forgive me for saying something silly, but it's my understanding when you buy any property, it says in the deed that you own the land, not the water. So whatever property anyone buys in any town, they can't dictate what happens in the water in front of them. The water is state owned, not owned by the towns. Or it's owned by the government. It's not owned by us. So I guess to make it simply, my neighbor was going to put his mooring balls out on his property lines out in the water. Well, he had no property lines out in the water. So for someone to sit there and say that they want to dictate what's in front of them in the water, they don't own the water. So how could anybody, whether they buy a house here or anywhere, dictate what sits in front of their house? They don't own the water. And when the tide's out, they still don't own what's under them. Because if anything, they own to, I don't know, is it the high tide mark, the low tide mark, I forget. Except for one property in town, the campgrounds, I think has a king's deed or something.
It's the mean hot top.
Yeah, but I mean, you can only own so far out, and the rest of that is not the property owner's property. Am I wrong or right on that?
And that's a good point, and I think that's one of the things this does. This says where your property ends. In other words, what she just described is not your front yard. And that's the big mistake we run into with, and by the way, the one incident I reported to you is one of many. And the misunderstanding with anybody moving into this town, that what they own and what the state owns, or further out, the lobstermen, fed owns, is not well known. Not known at all in most cases. This tells them exactly what it is. And it's the law. And it makes it very clear. And realtors, most of the time, maybe I'll be corrected here, as Poe said, it never comes up. It never comes up. And that's the whole point with Kenny Morse, University of Maine, a lot of people, is it's information that we want to impart. Whether we call it an ordinance or proclamation, give it a term, it's still the same. It's still going to have to be informed. And we're going to make sure that it goes on to the website, Maine real estate website, and to the other points you may not get to, that it is the responsibility of the realtor to tell people about the ordinances. And Poe may be different than other realtors, I don't know, but that's a point.
And Jesse, you will be after this individual who came forward that is actually speaking for the first time on this ordinance.
Yes.
Come on, Dan.
Am I in the right?
Yeah, you're in the right spot.
Okay, Kristen. My name is Kristen Moline, and
Yes.
I've lived here a pretty long time.
Can you
And,
please speak up, Kristen?
oh, I've lived here a pretty long time. And, I have a lot of trouble with this. And I understand what you're trying to do, and I absolutely support it. Georgetown is a working waterfront, and I support that 100%, but I don't think this document quite does it. And I support it as a proclamation, not an ordinance, because an ordinance becomes a legal document and a piece of policy. And as far as policy is, and I'm a policy wonk, this is not really good policy. I find it confusing. And for instance, when Bob Pagona asked about footpaths, I interpret it the same way. What is it any footpath? And my husband and I walk the talk. We allow people to cross our property. parking is the least of the issues that we have had to deal with in allowing people to cross our property. And, I mean, I can go through and say the things that confuse me and that I think are poorly written and not good policy. So as a proclamation, I would vote for this. Ordinance, no, we don't need it as, that's, thank you for listening.
Point well taken, and the same one, I think, that Jeff, you were making. I think we have to clarify that language in the paths, if it's implying that any path can be used, that's not correct.
And you know, this is why we have public hearings, to get the feedback.
This is
So,
great, this is great stuff.
And we got two more folks. Mr. Teller will come in after Jesse Graham, and then we will move on
Then we'll move on
to the next or is Sarah Mancini stretching?
Stretching,
Okay,
Sarah.
so Jesse,
a long time to stretching.
so Jesse, by all means, please jump
Great.
in, and got one more individual after you on this ordinance.
Thank you. I think I have a thought and an idea that might help. I understand that you want to transfer the requirements of land use to the new owner, right? Without getting into all the legal talk. So these footpaths, anybody who has an easement or a legal right to use property in a certain way, that needs to be disclosed by the present owner of the property. So one other way to do this is, if you want to require something, is to make it in the seller disclosure that this is a working waterfront. And if somebody has a right of way to the waterfront for certain use, that needs to be put in the disclosure. That's not, and that's up to the owner and the real estate agent to discuss and decide what goes on that disclosure. So perhaps that's another way to look at this. Instead of looking at all the hundreds and hundreds of real estate agents, and I really don't understand, I don't look at the Maine Association of Realtors website very often because I have too many things to read every day. So I don't understand how that is going to make people know this information, but what would help is if it went through the seller. So maybe that's another way to think about it.
Certainly way to think about it, but to answer your question, when it goes on that site, as Poe said, they're obligated to go to that town and see if there are any ordinances that they need to inform a buyer of. And that's where this has teeth, and that makes all the difference in the world.
The last word.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
This should be real short.
You can tell us back up.
Back up.
So Bob brought up, section 3H. I have a little problem, and it's not with what you're saying here, but I have a problem that the town will protect the commercial fishermen from changes to the town ordinance that could negatively affect their operation. I'm not saying I'm a good example, but there could be a case where there's another person in town who has every right to have something changed, and it might affect the fishermen. I don't think we should be taking sides here. I think the town has to decide what's right for everybody and not say, I'm declaring that the fishermen have absolute right above everything going on. It's just, I think it's a point, I think I said too.
And I think that the working water group discussed that, and just like other ordinances get amended from time to time, that's the solution.
Yeah, I'm not
If
against,
this were to pass,
yeah, but it shouldn't be one side. It sounds like we're making it one side here, that's all.
point taken.
Okay, thank you.
That was David.
One last quick thing. If
Bob, you gotta come up so folks can hear you, please. Thank you.
as you go forward with this,
Yes.
whether it be as a proclamation or an ordinance, there's a couple of typos in here that need to be
Thank
fixed.
you very much, Bob. I appreciate it. And John, did you take note of that? Actually, I could blame John.
And
He wrote the whole thing.
Hey, Bob, you're not sitting down, you're
Yeah,
up
your
next.
names. Pat Burns and the Working Waterfront, Community, Working Group, thank you very much for your, work on this. Lots of questions, but that's good. We just had the one informational meeting on this, so thank you, Pat. Thank you, John. All right, come on up, Bob. We're gonna now, move on to the, ordinances, the proposed ordinances submitted by the planning board. And, for those of y'all who've been, tuning into the select board meetings, you've heard Bob and others run through this. And we've also, if you've seen it reported, so we've got a couple of times to go through this, so Bob, if you would please hit the highlights, we probably don't need, since everybody has a copy, and for those of you all on Zoom, this packet is online, you should have gotten a link with that, so I think it makes sense, what we discussed before was, to hit the highlights of the changes, Bob, that would probably be helpful, and then we'll take questions. And we'll keep this moving along, thank you, Bob.
Okay, working waterfront.
Yeah, very good. We're listening, we got it.
Okay, the first ordinance up is the building demolition permit ordinance. On page 1, paragraph 3, subparagraph A, we added the term secondary dwelling unit. The construction or placement of any new or relocated principal structure, accessory dwelling unit, secondary dwelling unit, or tiny home. Yeah. On page 3, paragraph 8, one line above subparagraph B, there's an extraneous word there, and the word is and that is being deleted. On page 4, this is paragraph 9, requirements, subparagraph A, an application to add words being deleted or an additional principle, added SDU, deleted dwelling, or an ADU or a tiny home to an already developed lot or multiple dwellings to an undeveloped lot must provide verification that each added unit has access, excuse me, access to adequate potable water and an adequate septic system. And then the paragraphs below that are being deleted because it was too verbose. It was very difficult to prove what we were asking for. So we made it simpler. Subparagraph B in that same paragraph, structure setback requirements. Added the word structures, SDUs, ADUs, tiny homes, or accessory structures. Under subparagraph C, accessory dwelling units. One ADU shall be permitted per parcel that has an existing single-family dwelling. The word dwelling is being deleted. And then follows two-family dwelling unit. It may be located within the principal structure, attached to an existing structure, or as an additional detached dwelling unit. After that, we go to saying we deleted the lot on which an ADU is to be located must comply with the state minimum lot lines size laws. Under the next subparagraph 3, we changed cannot to may not. So it reads at least 190 square feet and may not be larger than 850 square feet. An ADU must meet all lot coverage area and setback requirements. That was there. We added the terms. It may be built on a non-conforming lot of record. So if you have a non-conforming lot of record, that does not prevent you from building an ADU. The last statement in that subparagraph is all permits for ADU shall be issued with condition that they may not be rented under a, we deleted the word single, rental agreement for periods of less than 30 days. It had been 90 days. Maximum height limit for structures. The state, in their efforts to promote affordable housing, we have a height limitation of 35 feet. The state overrode that a little bit. They say an affordable housing development, note it says development, may exceed the 35-foot height restriction by no more than 14 feet, except in the shoreland zone overrides. Subject to review by a municipal fire chief or designee that the town can provide adequate fire response to the building. We don't have a ladder truck. We only have the ability to spray water given the amount of pressure we have. If the building is too high and it would be hazardous, could not be kept safe with the equipment we have, the chief would have a say on as to what may or may not be done or should be modified, how it should be modified so that everybody is safe. And again, the height exemption to the height restriction is no exemption to the height restriction is allowed in the shoreline zone because that's a state requirement, not a county requirement. On page 6, reconstruction or replacement is now under non-conforming structures. Reconstruction of a non-conforming structure shall not be permitted if the structure has been abandoned for more than 18 months as of the date of the application. This goes back to grandfather. There's a limit on how long you can grandfather something, and that's 18 months. So we're just trying to conform and make everything uniform from ordinance to ordinance in place to place. On page 8, we define the term secondary dwelling unit. This came about because of changes, again, mandated by the state for affordable housing. And we had ADUs before that, accessory dwelling units. We had principal structures, we had tiny homes, now we have secondary dwelling units. Secondary dwelling units may be permitted as allowed by law in a designated growth area. We have 2 growth areas on town in accordance with the
Comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan, thank you. And in the designated growth area, the lot on which an SDU, secondary dwelling unit, is to be located shall comply with the state minimum lot size law. This is in various different places in the state laws. The minimum lot size changes depending upon what the limitations are. And an SDU must meet all coverage and setback requirements. Then we move on to definitions. Accessory dwelling unit, self-contained dwelling unit located within, attached to, or detached from a single family home, single family, or a multi-unit residential structure located on the same parcel of land. The phrase a multi-unit residential structure is added to the accessory dwelling unit definition. Accessory structure. We added the term dormitories there and deleted non-commercial in front of workshops. We define dormitories, I think everybody knows exactly what it is. It's a structure used as living quarters without kitchen facilities for students, faculty, and or staff as an accessory use to an educational institution. Dormitories are not considered dwelling units for the purpose of this ordinance. Principal structure. The definition of a principal structure had been a structure, and this is a structure other than the one that is used for purposes wholly incidental or accessory to the use of another structure or use on the same lot. We decided that was a lot of gibberish, and we revised it and took a definition from another state statute, and it says a building or structure considered on a lot in which the main or primary use of the premise is conducted. We think that's a little bit clearer and concise. Secondary dwelling unit. A dwelling unit other than an ADU or a tiny home that is placed on a lot already containing a dwelling unit. So if you have a primary home there already, and you want to have a second dwelling that's more than 850 square feet in size, it would be a secondary dwelling unit. Question? Okay. And that was it on building and demolition for the ordinance.
You definitely were sensing the right side of the room, Bob, because Darla has a question.
Gotta come up for it.
Yes, thank you, Ellen.
Going back to the reconstruction of a non-conforming structure shall not be permitted if the structure has been abandoned for more than 18 months as a date of application. Can you explain that? So that means if apply for a permit, I only have 18 months
Yes.
to get, okay.
Yeah.
I was afraid you were talking about somebody inheriting a house and not getting to it through estate, et cetera, that you would not be able to get a permit.
No.
Afterwards for 18 months, because that can take years. I just want to clarify.
David,
This is just a small nitpick, section 3.
David Teller speaking. Okay, yeah.
Okay, section 9. No, page 5, top of page 5. Number 3, it says an ADU must be at least 190 square feet and may not be larger than 850 or must not. If you say may, then maybe you have some wiggle room up there. I'm just asking what you mean by that.
there is no wiggle room.
Then it says, should say must, not may. May is not definite.
I will check with my English.
I would just. I told him that.
Are there any questions, comments, concerns from folks on Zoom? Seeing none.
Okay, minimum lot size ordinance. Paragraph 2, subparagraph 4. In areas subject to shoreline zoning ordinance, the standards set forth in that ordinance shall control if more restrictive. All that's saying is that if you're in a shoreline zone, the shoreline zoning ordinance governs. Specification, minimum lot size. All lots created after the effective date of the ordinance shall have a minimum area of 2 acres exclusive of wetlands. In every instance, each lot shall be laid out so 150 foot square can fit within the area of its lot lines. We have added that the lot borders on a coastal or freshwater wetland or water body, it shall have a minimum frontage on said water body as provided for in shoreline zoning ordinance. Frontage on a pond or lake not covered by the shoreline zoning ordinance shall be at least 100 feet. So you have waterfront property on a pond or a lake and is not covered by the shoreline zoning ordinance, then we've got a minimum frontage, allowable frontage, 100 feet. That's all there is on that. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Teller, any good grammar? I'm kidding.
My papers prudence for that.
Next up is shoreline zoning ordinance. Paragraph 12 on page 3, non-conformance. This is what is currently there for the purposes of this section. The effective date of the ordinance is now March 74, including any subsequent amendments. Any non-conforming condition lawfully existing prior to the adoption of this ordinance shall not by reason solely of such adoption be deemed an unlawful condition. So if it existed before the ordinance came into existence, you don't have to tear your house down because it doesn't conform with the ordinance after it's passed. Okay? This is known as grandfather, which is a more familiar term to most people. Question?
No, I just missed the whole thing where we closed off on the building permit ordinance. I didn't hear any more questions or anything. And I didn't get in on it, and there's conversations going on, and there's paper rustling, and Darla spoke, and nobody said any other questions, and now we've done 2 more ordinances. So,
So why don't we finish this one,
Yeah.
Tiffany, so we can stay on point? We'll make sure you get your word in.
awesome, thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Thanks for speaking up.
Okay, on page 5, subparagraph 4 down towards the bottom, reconstruction or replacement. Again, reconstruction of a non-conforming structure shall not be permitted if the structure has been abandoned for more than 18 months as of the date of application. So if you've got a structure that's been abandoned, basically falling down, and you don't say something within 18 months after it's been, quote, abandoned, then you cannot get a permit to rebuild. A good example of this is when I was a code enforcement officer, I went out to a piece of property that the guy had bought recently. And he walked me around the property and he was telling me about different projects he wanted to do, and there was a boathouse that he wanted to rebuild. Was the boathouse. We walked over to the edge of the drop off, there in the mud, perfectly flat, with some planks and the remains of a roof and so on. And I said, no, you can't rebuild that thing. It's been gone too long. So that's what we'll look at. You know, make sure that you're not trying to reconstruct something that has long been gone. There's a limitation. Limitation is 18 months.
Thank you, Tiffany, sorry. No.
Just for Tiffany Jones, just for clarification. If someone was to have a small little house that was operated at one point as a house, it's still there. It can still be grandfathered in, even though it has not been lived in. Is that the 18 months? Sorry, we're just trying to.
Yep.
It's good.
I'll jump ahead a little bit here.
Okay, I maybe jumped the gun, but. I'm sorry, I don't want to miss out.
It's okay, have a question.
Thank you.
The definition of abandoned.
Okay.
Okay, abandoned is a building that is vacant or unoccupied, and, that's the critical word, and deemed to be structurally unsafe or unstable, unsanitary, constitutes a fire hazard, is unsuitable or improper for the use or occupancy for which it is put. Constitutes a hazard to health or safety because of improper maintenance, dilapidation, or obsolescence, or is otherwise dangerous to property, life, or property. So if you have a building, let's say your grandmother's house, and she died 3 years ago, nobody's lived with it. It's still structurally sound, it's still enclosed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You're not gonna be forced to tear it down. You can live in it.
Correct. So there are a number of properties here in Georgetown that do have small or large home style structures on them already, and we've always had the ability of a grandfather to replace that unless it gets torn down. So there may be a lovely little structure that people cannot inhabit right now, but with work it could. So you're saying that's a no-go anymore if you have a nice little structure on your property that once was a nice little house. That it's no longer grandfathered.
Deemed to be structurally unsafe.
Right.
If it's still structurally safe
To be lived in.
and can be lived in,
Yeah, so you're no longer grandfathering small structures that have just been not lived in for a long time.
well, I would have to see what you're talking about.
Sure. I think there's a lot of them where there's my family alone has 2 structures right now that we're hoping to rekindle some life into, but are not lived in and probably not structurally safe to move into tomorrow.
Okay. Well, all I can say is that there's a possibility. Until it comes before the planning board and we see what's going on, I would not say yes, I would not say no. There are also many structures on Georgetown. My next door neighbor has a structure on his property that is, was a one-story building. I think it's about 4 feet tall now, Jeff.
Well, we have one building that was completely abandoned, floors gone, which we had renovated 35 years ago. It's now a lovely building at the shore. Then we have another building that's, yes, about 16 inches high.
And, you know, there are structures all over town where you see them there, you know, the roof is caving in. They're, you know, collapsing, things like that.
And I think people are holding on to them with the hopes that they're still grandfathered. And that's why nobody's done anything about the eyesores.
If they're in the condition I just described, and it's been more than 18 months, then they're probably not gonna be able to do that. But again, like I say, it doesn't hurt to come to the planning board and ask, you know, make a presentation.
So as of this point in time, to just stay the last statement, if you have a building on your property that you had in hopes of being grandfathered, that is still whole and has nothing falling apart on it, but is not being used or maybe even structurally sound for somebody to move in tomorrow, that there's probably a good chance that you're not gonna be able to use it. Just by this, it just sounds like
It's a possibility.
yeah, I think it's a big possibility. So a lot of people in town now who have these buildings with the knowledge that as long as the building is still standing, it is grandfathered to use it. So now we're changing that to a slight possibility with approval. Whereas it's always been that as long as it's standing, you can replace it.
I would not agree with that statement.
Well, a lot of people have that understanding, which is why the buildings are still there. Okay, but that's clear, thank you.
Now, would that pertain to anything under 10 by 10, 10 by 20, 10 by 10, where you don't need a permit? I'm just curious because a lot of people have like old sheds on their property they might want to redo in 18 months. I mean, no one lived in it. Let's say it's a boathouse and not in the shape that you're talking about where there's nothing left in it, but within reason, it might need an improvement. A lot of people let that stuff go. And I just think 18 months is a ridiculous amount of time. I mean, 5 years maybe, something like that. I don't see any harm in it.
Well, 18 months is state standard.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Darcy. John, come on up, John Jones.
Okay. We'll give you a hypothetical on that. I'm trying to understand this idea of this abandonment and a structure.
I'm sorry, John, you're gonna have to tear down that workshop.
I have a permit for that. I kept a good copy of that. If someone built a boardwalk across a marsh and a storm took it out and it was abandoned, it hasn't been used for more than 18 months, would that be an abandonment and not be able to get a permit? And would that apply to your definition of a structure, or you're only talking buildings? I know you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Without saying.
In a case like that, if you have storm damage, okay? The state has stepped in when we had the storm in 24, they stepped in and they changed a lot of rules and regulations for one time only.
Right.
Okay, if you have a storm that comes in and wipes out your walkway.
Right.
Then I would say it's up to you to come to the town within 18 months and apply for something. I'm not saying you have to build it
Right.
in 18 months.
Start
But get off your duff and get a permit application in.
Right.
I mean, and I understand that, if that's only one issue of many that you have on that piece of property,
Right.
then it may be a little bit more difficult, but again, step forward early. At least let us know what's going on.
Even if that structure was built illegally without either the state or the town's concurrence? Would that be, or
That would definitely be a hiccup.
a negative to it?
It would be a hiccup.
Thank
I
you.
am not gonna make a decision on anything.
I understand. Thank you.
I don't care how many times you ask.
Thank you.
Diane, come on down.
Okay, it's gonna be a tricky question for you guys. Watch out, my legs.
No, Diane, you cannot rebuild that dock.
No, not the dock, please. No. If you have a structure, let's use my garage, for example. The garage is there, it's never been used as a garage, it's right now a storage shed. But it's deemed that, oh, you can't rebuild it, but I'm being taxed on that. So technically, if it's not rebuildable, it's also not taxable. What happens in that
Your garage
situation?
is a perfectly good structure, so yes, you're gonna be taxed on it.
No, I'm just saying, if you have a situation where you have a building on your property that is deemed that it is not rebuildable, all right, or that you can't do anything with it, can you, and it's taxable, if you can't do anything with it, then can you have stop tax on?
You would have to go to the town office, see Tyler, and ask him to have the assessment.
No, you have deemed it as non-taxable, because you say it has no value, it's no good. So you can't continue taxing the structure, correct?
I cannot assess buildings.
So what you do, Diane, is, as Bob said, you'd reach out to the town office and we'd get the assessor out to view that structure. I know at least one family in this room now that had us go out and visit a structure that was 100% abandoned, obsolete, and the assessor threw an abatement, wiped it away and took that value right off the books, but that's not something the planning board would be dealing with on approving permits. That's the tax assessor side.
I just meant in the structure of in declaring the building unbuildable or not usable, then the building should not be taxable either.
And I would encourage, if you know of somebody in that circumstance, encourage them to file an abatement within 6 months of getting their tax bill. You get to 6 months in a day, you gotta wait till the next year. But that's something that if it's unbuildable, it has no value, there shouldn't be a value associated. That said, the last time Georgetown had a door-to-door reval, I was in the 4th grade. And I guarantee there are a lot of structures on the island that the assessor hasn't laid eyes on. But I can assure you that we've received a lot of abatements in the last 2 years. And the assessor goes out and visits most of those properties, if not all of them.
Well, I can assure you that the assessor said I had a finished garage apartment in that garage, which has a lot of boxes in it. And
Let's have
he
this,
said it was a finished floor, and I showed him the dirt on the floor, and I said, you show me this finished.
let's have a conversation offline. I'd love to get the assessor out. He's on the island, so.
I don't want him over there.
Well,
But I'm
that's,
just saying, there's a situation where you have something deemed zero value or a different value, and you have to look at the tax value situation as well.
if we
I'm saying
refuse,
two sides.
if we refuse to let the assessor, but if we refuse to let the assessor show up, we then can't assess a value, but now I'm off in the weeds, which are many of them in the shoreline zone ball.
Yes,
He goes in the
Many
garage.
weeds. and not the kind that you would sell.
That's a whole other word.
Okay, continuing on. Page number 6. Second paragraph down, non-conforming structure. And this is if it's less than 50% of the market value.
1 second.
It had been 1 year
Yep, okay.
and we extended it to 18 months, so it conforms with all of the other timelines in the ordinance.
And hey, Bob, we do have a question from Kelly James, if she'll unmute herself. She's joining in and had her hand up in that last conversation, and I was pointed out from the audience, so if Kelly would like to take her chance, please put your camera on and we'll pin you.
Yes.
Yep, she's
Hi.
unmuted. Thank you, we got this.
Thank you. I love that, Tyler. Take my chance. I had a question, particularly about the building ordinance, and
We'll
it's
circle back
still,
to that, because we're actually gonna be going back to the building ordinance for Tiffany. We're trying to finish up shoreline zoning, so if this is building.
okay. Sorry, I apologize on that. I was trying to get in earlier, but had issues. So if I could speak then, I would love that opportunity.
Definitely stay online, we'll get you there, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bob, sorry for that deviation, which was totally out of order on my part.
That's okay. All right, I think that pretty much covers shoreline zoning ordinance. If there are any other questions on shoreline zoning.
One last call, are there any questions on the shoreland zoning ordinance before we revert back to the building and demo? Tiffany will be up first and then Kelly on building and demo.
We'll have to take Kelly first.
Are you sure? Because
Yeah.
we're trying to stay in order, so you'll be up next.
That's fine.
All right, Kelly, you're up for building and demo. Sorry for that complete. Whatever that was on my part.
Sorry about that. Now I'm having technical things. Hi, okay, thank you. I apologize for being out of order. I was curious on the building and demo. We had multiple discussions in town regarding short-term rentals, and it went so far as to have the possibility of a short-term rental ordinance. And that was tabled, but yet we still have short-term rental restrictions in the building and demo ordinance itself. So it, to me, kind of seems like a backdoor way to keep it all in there, and was wondering why we were leaving any kind of rental restriction in that.
Because there are short-term rentals in town and there's no reason to change the ordinance because the short-term rentals still exist. There are requirements, new requirements basically by the state for affordable housing, which doesn't jive with short-term rentals. And they specifically created ADUs, if you will, for affordable housing. And a lot of people started building ADUs, but used them as short-term rentals instead of affordable housing.
And I would just add in, Bob, not to interrupt rudely, but some of this language had already existed in the ordinance.
Oh,
And the planning board actually went less restrictive with some of the red lines.
Yeah.
Though that doesn't clearly translate in text. For instance, like section C, subsection 1, sub permit 6, you get into a spot where all permits for ADUs shall be issued with the condition they may not be rented under a rental agreement for periods of less than 30 days. That's actually 60 days less than it had been under the current existing ordinance, correct? So there are less restrictive pieces too.
Right.
Okay. Did you have more you wanted to ask, Kelly?
I guess my point was I have yet to see it in the state law stating that it had to be restricted. And I was questioning that in the past, that an ADU or anything had to be restricted. In having that kind of restriction in the building and demo ordinance just seems like a backdoor way to continue restricting rentals.
That first came into being in LD 2003. That's not the year, that's the LD number.
I remember that.
When they first started messing with home rule and taking away from the towns the ability to run their own show. And they put that restriction in, and it's been there ever since.
But as a town, don't we get to govern ourselves to some point? And I felt like that with all the talk in the town about the short-term rentals, that this would be the place to consider not putting it in here, in with our building permit. Because I don't think I saw anywhere in the law where it specifically stated you had to put a restriction. Even in the LD 2003, like whatever it became for the law exactly, I do not recall exact wording that said a town had to restrict short-term rentals?
I think it's in LD 1829 for the accessory dwelling unit. Not the secondary dwelling unit, the
Right.
accessory dwelling unit. Yes, yeah.
And that was Katie Goodwin from the select.
And just one thing, as a former legislative aide, I'd like to toss in there, when we talk about LD numbers, every session, there will be a 2003 and 1892, so we'll want to make sure you're looking at the right session to pick those up. You could also look up by public law and track some of that down. But to some of your point, Kelly, and I'm not trying to go too far into the weeds, some of these
Absolutely.
restrictions were already in the ordinance as adopted previously. And so some things like lessening the minimum from 90 days to 30 days is actually the planning board getting less restrictive, though I totally understand your philosophical point. I just note that some of the stuff in there has been made less restrictive.
I appreciate that, Tyler, but if the planning board can go less restrictive as somebody from town, I can ask the same at any point during the ordinance hearing, which is what I'm doing.
Absolutely. I just wanted to clarify that some of that is in there.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tiffany, did you have a question on this
It
ordinance?
was actually very covered a lot.
Yes, thanks. It's been covered, okay, thank you.
And to be clear to everyone, this is your opportunity to weigh in, so my comments and offering information is not in any means meant to stifle anyone's opinion. All questions are good questions.
Okay, next up is solar energy. And this deals basically with firefighter safety. In order to try and protect firefighters as much as possible, the National Fire Safety Standards say if you're gonna have a rooftop solar array, you have to have pathways along the edges of the building where the solar arrays are. And we had that in the ordinance, it was not entirely clear, went back and we rewritten to try and clarify it. Although that some people may disagree as to whether it's clear or not. At a minimum, 2 36-inch wide or wider access pathways from the lowest roof edge to the ridge must be provided on separate planes of the roof. There must be an access pathway in close proximity to the roof plane containing all solar panels. The pathway may be on the same roof plane as the panels on a adjacent roof panel or straddling the same and adjacent roof panels. So you can have a pathway on the edge on one side, and if you have a dormer or something on the other side, and you have a valley, you can have the pathway on that section of the roof that doesn't have a solar panel, and it still meets the requirement. And like I say, the whole thing is for firefighter safety. And we did make another change concerning small structures such as sheds or garages, one-story structures. If you keep it down low to the ground, such as a one-story structure, and it's not a habitable building, i.e., you don't have beds, refrigerator, kitchen, etc. in that building, then you don't have to meet the requirement to have the pathways for the firefighter because they'll stay on the ground and just spray the roof. Any questions on that?
We have Gert Walter on Zoom, if he'd like to unmute himself.
Hopefully I got it right this time. My question is, I don't see anything in the ordinance change about grandfathering existing roofs that have solar panels all the way to the edge, which there are some in town. Has that been addressed? Are they grandfathered, or is this just for new construction?
That has not been specifically addressed as grandfathered, but yes, it would. Until they take that down or modify it, it's allowed to exist.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Well.
Can you just ask a general question? Are there,
Just so folks can hear. Thank
just
you.
general question, is there, a way to ask about, motions to change wording, like before all of this goes through?
At town meeting? you
At
mean?
town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But not right now.
I'll answer that question.
You want it before town meeting, you know?
Right.
You can't,
Just gonna let Tyler.
you can't amend an ordinance at town meeting, and quite frankly, tonight was the very latest that we could have an ordinance hearing.
Okay.
Before town meeting to comply with some of the statutory requirements on 7 to 10 days notice for the public.
Okay.
And so if the select board tonight were to make changes, we then have to have another public hearing, which would also have to have X number of days of notice. So I wouldn't say vote something up or down, but if something's not ready for prime time, it could be taken off of the warrant before it gets brought to town meeting. Or if it got voted down, I'm sure things would be looked at, but the clock has started to run out at this stage.
And so just to be clear, Tyler, the options for people who are supporting this are to vote it up. The options for people who have questions or not supporting it are to vote it down.
After we set the warrant later tonight.
That's right.
Well, I'm throwing it out to make some amends to that, structure. What am I saying? Where, you say it. You're better.
Yeah,
Claire, if you can come up, please.
Sure, yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
arrived. Claire Evans, come on up.
At a GOP meeting. I think what we would like to see, which was asked last time in my public comment, would be for all STR restrictions to be completely removed and not be part of this ordinance going forward. So we understand that the language was there and that's why it's still there and that we've done a little bit of work around making it less restrictive. But I think a lot of people in town have spoken and shared that we don't want STR restrictions of any form. And so I don't see a problem in us not putting it on the warrant. There's been a lot of heat around this in town. I think more time, more sessions for people to talk and for them to come and share their feelings is a good thing. So I think that's what we would like to propose.
Who's we?
That's what I would like to propose.
Thank you.
And a few other people, but, yes, that we have that just amended to remove that. It's not really necessary for the point of the ordinance.
Well, at this point in time, we're not going to change that. It's the terminology that's there, will stay there. Unless the select board decides to remove it. That's all I can tell you on that, and I think that
Yeah.
the select board at some future date is gonna readdress short-term rentals, and that's when it should be brought up.
Okay, so I guess then if there's no room to respond to what some people in town are asking for, then I do just want to say, like, it's not like we haven't been saying this. The last time I came and spoke at public comment, I made the same plea for this, that the STR restrictions be removed. And so we had time from then until now for the select board to consider that and think about that. So it feels like we're just not being listened to. And if we need to get people to come to town meeting to vote it down, then we'll have to put a significant effort into doing that.
So if if the building and demo ordinance, for instance, was voted down as written, I just note then the restrictions on ADUs on rentals of 90 days would still be on the books versus 30, not just sharing that it, throwing out all of it could have some other adverse reactions in the short term while folks looked at other things. So I just offer that as a piece of information.
And we didn't understand, I hear what you're saying now, we did not understand at our last meeting that that's what you were asking for. So I'm hearing you.
But also, we did hear that, and we did act on it. So
That's right,
the
we did.
ADU language was there, wasn't amended this year. What was in the draft that was removed was the language that around ADUs not being able to be rented for less than 30 consecutive days per year. That was also tagged on to the estimate.
And we did strike that.
And we struck that, so that's not in there. The reason why the ADUs have the limitation is because it's coming down from the state.
But it's where in the law, and I just pulled in, so, but
Yeah.
you're saying that at the state level, because we've been unable to locate this ourselves.
Yeah.
At the state level, the state is saying you have to have an STR restriction on this.
The state is saying you have to have an STR restriction on buildings that are built because of the new height housing legislation.
Can you help us understand where that is?
Sure, yeah, it started with the LD 2003, which was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it was amended to 1829 2 years ago, and council need to act on it by next summer, I think is the deadline. So that's the ADU language. The SDU, the secondary dwelling unit, is a term that Georgetown specifically created because we needed to define structures that aren't your primary structure and they're bigger than 850 square. So because it's unique to Georgetown, we can do whatever. And so instead of having an STR restriction around it, we don't, we encourage you, right? So that could be brought to the table next year. We'll have a committee around STR or I don't know.
When we have a committee, you're saying there is going to be a committee next year for that?
If we revisit the STRs. Then we'll bring the community in tomorrow.
STR was key, right, that means it's not part of the table, so it can be brought back up again.
So Darla's question is, it was tabled, that's what Kathy's motion was to table it, it is not on this warrant because of the feedback that we received. And so if the community wants it brought back, then that will be made clear to us. We assume that we have heard from some people that are interested in the STR returning. And so we're just trying to listen to all of the viewpoints here. So she's right.
Does that make sense?
And I have to say that as part of the short-term rental fiasco, if you will, a survey was made. And basically it was pretty much split. Within the margin of error, it was 50-50. People for it, people against it. It's not overwhelming.
You're talking about the survey from the past, not
Yeah.
since this.
Yes.
Right, okay. I think it might be different if we were to send out a fresh one today, but, okay, so what I'm hearing then is, it is what it is, it's going to town as it is right now.
Yes.
Because the ordinance was, there is already an ordinance there, and as Tyler pointed out, it's 90 days, so it's more restrictive. The current, and we struck out some of the STR concerns that were in there.
Around secondary.
Around secondary dwelling, we struck those at our last meeting. If this goes, if it gets voted down, then it's more restrictive, because the 90 days remains in place, Clara. And the 30 days, which is less restrictive, doesn't get enacted. So there's already an ordinance in place, and so
Right.
that's what we're stuck with, if you wanna look at it that way.
Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag if you wanna talk about it in the terms that you're looking at it.
And the planning board does review their ordinances every year. The planning board does offer public comment at their meetings as well. I'm not saying everybody should head to a planning board meeting, but before we get to this stage next year, I guarantee the building and demo ordinance will be looked at again, and I think the points you're raising are very good ones, just the timing of the calendar right now for this town meeting that officially kicks off on June 9. Town meeting day where we debate everything is the 13th because of the election. The clock is kind of run out to make changes this year, because any changes that the select board, if they wanted to at their meeting tonight, would then need to have another public hearing scheduled, so everybody could come out and say, these were great, or still not meeting the mark. So just for what that's worth, it's an ongoing conversation, but I would note, just to be clear, the select board has not said in any meeting that I've been a part of that STRs is definitely coming back up. But as we hear folks talking about it, we have correspondence on our agenda tonight of folks that are still expressing views, but there has not been a decision to revisit that. I just want to be abundantly clear on that, too.
Are you coming down, sir? I would love to. Come down to the S.
So I have sorry, Sarah Mancini. I am a renter. I did not get the survey that came out about the STRs, maybe because it only went to property owners, but something to consider. Secondly, I was super disappointed that there was not a second town hall type of meeting about the STRs, because I did not realize that a decision was going to be made after the select board meeting about the draft ordinance. So I would really hope that if there is any more conversation, and I hope there will be more conversation about the STRs, that there is a wider meeting, because I feel like a lot of people spoke negatively. I'm not sure if the same amount of people had the chance to speak positively, because there wasn't like a follow-up meeting. So that's what I want to say. I was confused about the process. I didn't really understand why the second meeting was canceled.
The info night.
Yeah.
The info night, yeah.
Thank you.
And just to address that, we scheduled the info night because there had not already been an informational meeting like we've had on some of these other ones.
Yeah.
But the feedback at that point was so overwhelming, that we believed that we had the information that we needed.
Got it.
Now,
My bad. I will reach out next time.
No, that's okay. From your perspective, maybe that was a mistake on our part. We made the decision that we thought was the best decision to make at that time, based on the feedback we got.
Got it.
But we are, things are coming in. And so as Tyler mentioned, there's been more correspondence. We've had a lot of feedback that people wanted it tabled. And then we've had much less feedback that they're looking for it to come back.
Got
it. This is a conversation.
My feedback is I would love for it to come back.
Thank you very much.
And we'll get back to what's germane ahead of
Yes.
us. I would just note though to everyone, select board meets twice a month, at least, sometimes more. There's 2 opportunities for public comment for any of the items that are on the agenda. So there are opportunities for folks to engage. That said, my filibustering ended. Gert, did you have another question, or are we safe to turn this back to? He took down his hand, so we're good, Bob.
Okay. Moving on. Subdivisions. There are all 22, 23 pages in the subdivision ordinance. Fortunately, there's only one page that has any changes on it. So this should be fairly quick. On page 3, subdivision means a division or tract of land or parcel of land into 3 or more lots within any 5-year period that begins on or after September 23rd, 71. This definition applies whether the division is accomplished by sale, lease, development, buildings, or otherwise. The term subdivision also includes the division of a new structure or structures on a tract or parcel of land into, the old ordinance said 3 or more dwelling units. The state, in their infinite wisdom, has changed that to 5. So you'll see on section 151, 3 has been crossed out, 5 has been added. And it goes on to say the construction or placement of 3 or more dwelling units, that 3 is also changed to 5 in a single tract or parcel of land, and a division of an existing structure or structures previously used for commercial or industrial use into what used to be 3 is now 5 or more dwelling units within a 5-year period. So basically, they've taken all of the 3-year requirements and made it 5 years. So that it doesn't trip the trigger for a subdivision as soon as it would have before. Any questions?
Okay, all right, thank you, Bob, and members of the planning board. We appreciate you. All right, and our last item is, we'll have Lisa Sabatine, who was the originator and circulator for the Citizens Petition, come up and provide some informational remarks about the purpose of the initiative, and then there'll be presumably some questions. If not, then we'll move into the select board meeting.
Okay, thank
Susan.
you. Yes, as I already said, I'm Lisa Sabatine. I'm speaking tonight because I'm the person who drafted the citizens petition that requested the select board put on the warrant the question of increasing the number of select board members from 3 to 5. I serve on the planning board and the financial advisory committee in Georgetown. Both are 5-member boards. The issue of the size of the select board began to percolate in my head sometime in late 2024, early 2025. At that time, the select board thought it wise to secure alternates for a number of town boards for the purpose of having consistency should a life event occur and a board become short of a regular member. This process resulted in an alternate being placed on the FAC, creating a board of 5 and 1, and 2 alternates being placed on the planning board, making it a board of 5 and 2. The effort to ensure consistency on these boards was appreciated. Ironically, however, there was no discussion about increasing the size of the select board, arguably the most important board in town. The issue became critical in my mind with the loss of Bronwyn. She was the board member who had longevity. Her passing left us with 2 members, one of whom had served for 15 months, and the other had been newly elected in June, therefore having only 5 months of experience. These 2 individuals put forth a Herculean effort to carry on. However, they were left to make all of the major decisions for town. For me and many of whom I spoke, this was a concern. Georgetown has many committees: harbor, town-owned property, shellfish, FAC, planning board, schools, cemetery, board of appeals, solid waste, rec, and the fire department. Each select board member is assigned to some of these committees to act as a liaison. With the loss of Bronwyn, in addition to regular select board meetings, the 2 remaining board members divided all of the committees into 2, not 3. While they may not attend every meeting held for every committee, the goal is, I believe, to stay as current by attending as often as possible. This was, I'm sure, a tremendous time expenditure for the 2 members remaining. In order to hold a select board meeting, you must have a quorum. A quorum with a 3-member board requires 2 be present. This creates hardship should another responsibility be required of a member to be elsewhere. If 2 cannot attend, the meeting must be canceled. If 1 is absent, only 2 makes the decisions for the town. A 5-member board requires a quorum of 3. Therefore, a meeting can be held with 3 of the 5 present, and at least 3 people are always making the decisions. There's a fine line between enough participation and too much. When the planning board went from 5 members to 7 with the 2 alternates, all of whom had thoughts to share, the meetings became cumbersome and increased significantly in length. When, however, 5 members participate, they offer varied opinions, recognize important issues, and business is conducted efficiently. And most often, all angles are considered. A 5-person board has potential to allow our select board to expand the experiences, the thoughts, and expertise of the membership. While at times this may increase the length of the meeting, in my mind, careful consideration provided by people with varying ideas is a good thing. There have been fears expressed that we live in a town when people are very busy and involvement in town government is decreasing. During my time in Georgetown, I have found people are always willing to step up and participate. The job of select board member is, however, a lot to ask. With 3 members to divide the responsibilities, especially with the addition of the liaison to other committees, the time commitment can be considerable. I believe dividing the work amongst 5 would alleviate some of this and therefore encourage more people to consider running for the position. There were also questions about what other towns do. I did a quick, certainly not exhaustive search online and looked at the number of select board members in 23 main towns. They range in location from Kennebunk to Jackman, with populations from 11,536 to 710. Of these 23 towns, 1, Kennebunk, has 7 members. 16 towns have 5 select board members, and 6 have 3. I came to the conclusion that a 5-member select board is certainly not an anomaly. I personally believe a 5-member select board would serve Georgetown well. As we know, there are life events that make serving out a term impossible. Should that happen again in the future, a 3-person board leaves us in the same situation as occurred last November with Bronwyn's passing. We're a town that's growing in needs and diversity. Therefore, I believe it's wise to ask the citizens if it's time to increase our select board from 3 to 5. Thank you. Any questions?
So Lisa, I have a question. So you were at the meeting in our town, just for the benefit of the folks here. Our town council, sat in on the last meeting and gave us a rundown of pros and cons. She's been in municipal law for about 25 years, I think she said, pros and cons of different towns and their governing structure. And based on those comments, Tyler prepared this fact sheet, that's available both online and here. One of the questions that has come up that we are wondering is how, especially when everybody is very concerned about the municipal budget, how can we justify the increased cost, which won't just be the stipends, which about $10,000 when you add in the training dollars, but also the additional monies that will be required for increasing compensation for at least the town administrator. Can you answer that, please?
I'm not sure where that factor, if that's a factor, where it comes from. I don't know why.
That came from the town attorney when she mentioned the increased workload for the town administrator. I'm just trying to figure out the,
I would think that having more select board members would mean that there is more work in town that is done by those people. I don't understand why the town administrator would receive significantly more work.
So when Tyler's preparing for these meetings, he's preparing work and answering questions throughout the weeks, the month, from 3 members of the board, plus committee chairs and those kinds of things. And so if there are 5 members, having him run around and do things, as an employer, it would not be fair to Tyler, or it might trickle down to Mary and Angie as well, to ask them to take on more work than, and not compensate them. So that is something that I'm wondering, how do we justify to the taxpayers the increase in costs if we go with 5?
I guess I'm one that wants to see facts. I want to see the numbers. I want to see how much of Tyler's day is spent preparing for select board meetings and answering and preparing for the questions that the individual select board members are giving him. And if that's a substantial part of his workload and 2 more is gonna break the camel's back, then I guess that's an issue. But I have no facts. You're not providing any facts that say to me, Tyler is already worked to the maximum, taking care of the needs of the 3 select board members, and 2 more is gonna be more than he can handle.
So again, I'm harkening back to what the town attorney.
She also didn't provide the facts for that, though.
She has 25 years of experience. I'm just trying to ask questions here. Okay, so another question is, in terms of the survey, one of the feedback that we've gotten is why, and you heard Jess Weller say this, somebody else said this at a public comment, why there wasn't a survey done, like for the STRs or community feedback sought before we go right to town meeting with a major change to our town government.
I've talked to a number of people before I drafted the petition, and the people that I talked to asked me to put the petition together. I submitted, as you know, 1 petition which had, I don't know how many, more than whatever, I had to have 76 signatures. I think the first one had about 80 something. That petition was worded incorrectly, submitted the second petition that had closer to 100 signatures, some of them the same, some of them different. So there was quite a bit of enthusiasm to bring this question to the town. It didn't even occur to me to hold a public hearing, or people wanted the question brought to the town for a vote, which is why I proceeded in that fashion.
Okay, thank you for instance.
And we do have a couple of folks on the line, so we'll jump to Mike McDermott first, because his hand was up.
Hi.
Then we'll go Pat, and then we'll head to Mandy Winning.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Let me just elevate you real quick, Mike. Thank you.
How about this?
There you are.
How about now? Great. Thanks. I just have a statement. I don't have any questions. I'm Mike McDermott. I live in 5 Islands. I'm very concerned about the speed at which Lisa Sabatine's petition to bloat the select board is being pushed forward. I use the term bloat intentionally. This is not a small or routine decision. It's a fundamental change to how our town government is structured. This is a wasteful disruption, inconsistent with similar communities. That's made clear by the numbers that you provided, Tyler. Those numbers are very clear that it would be aberrant to have 5 members for a 1,000-person town. The discussion with the town's legal counsel, Kristen Collins, was very informative. She did highlight how burdensome an increase in the select board would be to the management of the town, very clearly from her experience. Additionally, these additional seats wouldn't be filled competitively. We know that. There's not much push for people getting elected to select board. This would leave us with write-in candidates. In Kristen's term, the bottom of the barrel. No judgment there. This is a solution in search of a problem. It's not supported by the select board. Bigger government isn't better. This doesn't add up. It's bad energy. Thanks very much.
Thanks for your opinion.
Are you going to
I
rebut
was-
me?
Only to say that in my part of my thoughts is the hope would be a greater diversity of board and therefore more people throughout this town would be represented. That's part of my thinking, but no, otherwise, thank you for your opinion.
So in the response to that, this started out as helping working mothers on the select board. That's how it began. Now it's like this DEI initiative, right? The diversity is taken care of by competition.
I guess I need you to clarify what supporting working mothers means.
That was the first pitch on the select board initially.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
There was an assertion that people were too busy. And that's not supported by the members of the select board.
Okay, I'm still not clear what you mean, but that's fine. Go ahead.
All right, all set. Thanks.
Sure, thank you.
Pat Burns, you are up next, and then it will be Mandy Winnie in the hot seat.
A couple of questions to the select board. Are you overworked right now?
We answered that in our last meeting. When we were asked whether we, well, I guess we brought it up after the meeting, at one of the meetings.
Do we have enough manpower to cover our needs on the select board?
I would say women power, but yes.
Women power. Okay.
Yes,
so
we all said
we're fine
that.
there. And we have 1,000 people in town.
We have
About
we have 1,090.
Yeah, Harpswell has what?
Hartsville has
5,000.
They have 3 select board there, and it's been that way for how long?
Harpswell has 5,031 people as of the last census. Harpswell did look in the past at potentially expanding their select board. Prior to my arrival in town, it did not move forward, so they've been 3 in Harpswell for quite some time.
It's really all over the place, Pat. Like Greenville has 1,437 people. Newcastle has 1,894. Whitefield has 2,157. Hope has 1,748.
And what is their workload?
I don't know what their workload is, but they have 5 select board members in those towns, so.
So if we don't have work, we don't.
If we don't have what, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
And it costs how long to add 2 more players? 20,000 a year?
Well, 4,000 per stipend and training dollars, and then. As Kristen related, then you're looking at the increase to the administrative staff, which is primarily Tyler, who doesn't just serve the select board, as we all know,
So 10,000 a year for 2 people.
at least.
Okay, in 10 years, that's 100,000. In 20 more years, if we keep it up, it's 200,000. Where's that gonna come from?
Well, it's, we're gonna calculate every budget that we have in town out 10 years.
Plus the raises that are gonna be required and the additional expenses. I've started thinking about what we're gonna do with our schools. What can we afford here when we're paying for people not having to do anything? Frankly, so I think 3 people doing the job. Going well so far. I haven't heard any complaints from anybody on the select board, for sure. So far, so good. Until you can justify it, You like facts, those are the facts, we don't need them.
Thank you for your opinion.
Mandy Winnie, I'm gonna pin you so we can see you. Hang tight, and you are up.
Hi, everybody. I always appreciate the willingness to make things better. I do have two questions that I'd love to have answered. One is, why is the rush to vote for this big change in our government without a committee to gather facts? And then my second question would be, how has a 3-person select board failed our community?
Do you want my opinion, Mandy?
Yeah. Do you have any insight to those?
So I don't think a 3-person select board has failed our community. My big concern is, I think that there are people that are hesitant to run because the workload is significant. I think that we have a potential of increasing the diversity of select board members, and we have a lot of different groups in town here. I would like to see a board that is made up of a more diverse group. I think that, what was your question? Say your question again.
My question is, why the rush and not doing due diligence and research through a committee process?
And that probably, Mandy, was just more, it wasn't about rushing this through, it was more about just maybe being naive to the procedure. It was a question that many people were discussing, particularly after Bronwyn's death. And we had a select board of only 2. And I think that whether or not they want to say it was a lot of work, it was a lot of work. I know Katie was on the school committee. She was on the planning board. She served as a liaison for the fire department. Those were long and complicated meetings and a lot of work. Kudos to her for doing it. I don't know who else would want to step forward and give up so many evenings out of their weeks. And if we were to lose a select board member again, we have to have a special town meeting. We have to go through the whole process. I mean, not, God forbid, we lose somebody to a death, but people have other life experiences that cause them to leave a board or to make a decision they don't want to stay anymore. If we lost one and we had a 5-board member, it's not such a catastrophe.
I'm really concerned that this is trying to find a problem to fix, and that there isn't a glaring problem. And I'm concerned about the long-term consequences that may not be fully thought through. One could be the financial budget. Even just on a functional level, like if we add more people in the town office, it's cramped. Are we going to have to look into finding a larger space? Does that mean looking into the church next door? I'm concerned about the financial implications. And I'm also concerned that this feels almost a little undemocratic, because of course our select people have been voted by majority. So as default, they are representing the entire community. So I'm concerned about this.
Well, ultimately, I use the word undemocratic. I mean, ultimately, this would be brought to the vote of the taxpayers in this town, and they would make the decision as to whether or not they thought this was a good idea or not a good idea.
Understand.
To me, that's democracy in action, right?
Well, I'm speaking to the idea that a 3-person board isn't representative of the entire community. I'm concerned about that premise because our elections are, duly elected. Each person was represented by the majority. So I don't see how our 3-person board is not representing the entire community. And I'd love, if it isn't, that is a problem. And I'd love to hear how it's failing parts of our community.
Yeah. I've always heard, so everybody's always said Georgetown is a town of 5. There's Bay Point, there's Georgetown Center, there's West Georgetown, there's 5 Islands, there's all these different sections of Georgetown. And I feel like, for example, I feel like the fishing community is not represented on our select board. Not that they don't also work for the fishing community, because obviously they're just putting forth the working waterfront ordinance. but I would like to have somebody's voice. Now, there's no guarantee that somebody would run from the fishing community, or somebody from Five Islands, or somebody from other parts of town. But I would like to have some of those voices, and my hope would be, if the opportunity is for five, I think I would hope somebody would come forth that would be interested in the position. No guarantees, but I also don't believe that it's gonna be, like, we're gonna be filled up with writing candidates. I think people are more dedicated to this town than just to take a job as if they're a write-in.
I just want to point out, Lisa, you know, Jeff Chevitel is elected to the TOCMB, he's a fisherman. Dad Campbell's the chair of the Shellfish Committee, so we do have working waterfront people, fishing community people representing the town.
Sure, in those committees, I think it's different though, your select board is the board of the town ultimately.
I'm
So-
hearing.
Before you, Bob, we had Jess Weller patiently waiting, but if you wanna come to the front row, so you're ready, we'll have you on deck. And let me elevate you, Jessica.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Weller. Also the chair of the Conservation Commission. I just want to echo what I had said at a select board meeting a couple months ago, that I feel like this is going too fast. I feel like we need, much of what we do in town is put together with a working group or a research or committee. And I feel like that is what we need in this scenario. Unfortunately, we don't have time to do that before town meeting. So my recommendation would be to vote it down so that we do have that time to look into this. I also worry that we don't have the community volunteers for this. We are so spread thin. So many of us in town serve on so many different boards. I know myself, I do, and other organizations here in town. I currently have one spot on Conservation Commission that I'm struggling to fill. I looked at the town website just recently, and there's a bunch of town vacancies that are open in different committees. And I worry if we add 2 more people, we're just taking away from the people that we have that work really hard on our committees. I also just want to say that I'm concerned about the fact that we're not going to have uncontested elections. Kathy is running unopposed right now. Aria ran unopposed. I worry that we don't have the amount of people to run fair races. And and I just think we need more time, which we don't have. And I just also want to say, in terms of diversity, I go to almost all the select board meetings. You don't need to be a select board meeting to have a voice. You can join a committee, you can come to the meetings, they have public comment twice a meeting. I feel there's plenty of ways to be heard in terms of the diversity question. So that's it for now.
Thanks, Jess.
Bob Rubino.
Bob Rubino, Bay Point Road. I have no opinions on this. If I did, I wouldn't express them because I get kicked out of bed at night. I do have a question, something that Mike brought up. And this is a question to the town administrator. If we went to a 5-member board and we didn't have, in the year that we had 2 people running, if there was only 1 person put in to run, but there's 2 open, if I put my name as a write-in, is there a state statute says there has to be a majority of write-ins, or could 1 person as a write-in?
So when it comes to municipal elections, my last understanding of statute, and I'd want to review it again to make sure, is that unless a town has a specific charter with a threshold for write-ins, it's kind of the Wild West. When I was the deputy town clerk in Thompson, they had a charter commission that all 6 of the elected members were elected by write-in, writing the governing document potentially of that town. I think the person that got the most votes was 27. I conveniently got as many write-in votes as Satan, and that was only 1, but thankfully I didn't live in town, so that vote didn't count. So if Georgetown had a charter, there could be different rules. If it was for a state race, you have to declare X number of days ahead of time. But in Georgetown, I can tell you that there are folks every year that get write-ins, and there is the chance that a write-in could win. It does happen.
So in other words, if I didn't put papers in with proper signatures for support, and I didn't go to the what do you call it, the candidates night and express what I would do, if I put my own name in and I had only 1 vote, I could become a selectman. Is that true?
You could even run against Kathy, but I think you get kicked out of bed.
I think, Bob, in that scenario, we often have a number of write-ins, and so you would have to probably beat all the write-ins. Right, it's unlikely that you win with one vote, because we often have a number of write-ins and some of them have multiple votes.
I don't know that, but I do have a lot of other laws in town, and a lot of other family members who vote for me, I'm sure.
There you go.
Bob, this is a polling place, no electioneering.
That's right. Okay, do you have anybody online?
We do not, but we have
Yeah.
Mr. Bertzel.
Just
Jeff
gonna,
Bertzel,
yes, former selectman, just to say, the 18 years I was on the board, it definitely would have been helpful to have more board members. It's a huge time commitment. And I think that there was at least 2 times, I think, where a selectman had resigned, not while I was on. So that left us in that situation where you only had 2 people running. I just think that you all are overworked. I know I was when I was doing it. And the only other comment I have is I never got a raise in 18 years.
thank you. And that's.
Thank you.
You don't need it, just come on in.
Bob, come on up, or do we have anybody online?
We do not.
Okay, Bob, come on up, please. Bob Carbone again?
Yes, Bob Jerome again. I've worn a number of different hats in town over the time that I've been here. One of which was the pilot's hat. And it was just temporary because of a health issue with the administrator. And I stepped in. There's an awful lot of work. I think that the select people, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Lean on the administrator quite a bit because their jobs are full. They are asked to do a lot. I think that in order to properly represent the town, there's a certain amount of time that needs to be spent up in Augusta by the select board. And if we have 5 people instead of 3 people to divide that, it lessens the workload. You, as individuals, have less work to do because you have 2 people to help you, because you have more time now. You're not putting as much stuff on Tyler or the administrative assistant, however you want to word it. So I think that the 5 people is a good idea. I think it does give you a broader base, more opinions. Different people look at things differently. The business about the budget, sorry, it doesn't wash. I'm on the financial advisory committee, I'm the chairman.
I know.
We have a budget that's over $6 million. For a town of this size, that's ridiculous. For anybody to complain about a $10,000 or $15,000 increase, you're not, what percentage is that of $6.5 million?
My question was, how does he, when you hear the comments about that it's a solution looking for a problem, or that, people have asked for it. When it comes time, when we're looking at budgets, and you and I have been there, we've all been there. And we're asking the shellfish committee, so we're gonna talk about increasing their budget by 2,500, and we're really looking at that. And for me, that's money well spent, $3,000 to have them go see. Can we say to the taxpayers that an extra $10,000+ is money well spent on this? If we can, and everybody agrees on that at the voting poll, fine. I just wanted that issue brought up because we're all really cognizant of the budget.
So,
yeah, but when we're looking at the budget, at the end of the year, almost every single committee has money to give back.
Which is great.
Which is great. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, what's the percentage? What should you be shooting for? If we've got some committee or some organization within the town and they've got $100,000 left, is that good?
So, you know, it's just, it's a consideration, the town attorney brought it up, people are asking us about it, so we're just making sure that we're airing out all of it.
I also want to say something to your point.
It's that the budget is not the deciding factor on this. The deciding factor on this should be what's the best for the town, what gives the town a better government.
So I also want to say to your point, if there were 5 folks here on the board, as you said, they may be able to do more things in Augusta. And 2 years ago, I believe, we had a select board member and somebody that worked in the town that went to the FEMA meetings regularly and got us a $230,000 grant for the culvert on.
Yeah.
230,000, wasn't it?
Something like that.
I mean, they went to the FEMA meetings regularly, found that there was money available when the Robin Hood Road culvert had to be built. They got us a $230,000 grant. Now, I don't know if that's still out there or that falls into the scenario for the town in the future, but if we have 5 board members, they may have more ability to look into those things than just the 3 of you. I don't care what you said, you have got to be taxed to the max.
I mean, lots of people are, listen to Jess Weller.
I know, but
So,
people have said to me, would you run for select board? Absolutely not with 3 of you, not with 3 people. It's a lot of work and working full time.
I mean, we knew, I'll just speak for myself, I knew what I was getting into, I've been watching meetings for 3 years before I ran, longer than that, every meeting, so even as a non-select board member, I was attending the meetings. I knew what I was getting into, and for me, it hasn't been too much work, we told each other at the last meeting.
I think that with 5, I'm not sure that there would be less work. I think that maybe if we're shaving off an hour or 2 a month for liaison purposes, but then our meetings most likely will be longer.
The select board.
Yeah, sorry, the select board meetings will be longer because we have 5 people.
But I also wonder if it would give you more opportunities to explore options that would be good for this town. The other thing that I think is coming up, the school board, the school committee brought up the question of whether or not the AOS is still the best interest for this town.
Yes.
That's gonna require a committee and a lot of study, and I'm assuming that's gonna involve a select board member. So, there are things coming down the pipe that need committees. The short-term rental issue is gonna come up again. It's going to be another committee. So we're looking at more committees. The 3 of you are going to be spread even more thin. If there were 5 of you, I think it's manageable. I think at some point, even though we only have 1,090 people in this town, we've got a lot of stuff going on. At some point, it's gonna be exhausted.
I hear you, but I have to say, no one asked us how, if we were overworked, no one asked us about our workload, and this just went forward, as Jess said, and so we've told you, our workload is fine. And so you're telling us, how would you like it, Bob, if I told you your workload's too much? You have to trust us, you voted us in.
I think what I hear is not that you're not hearing us, it's just that you're saying that you want us to do it more. You want the 3 people to be capable of doing more.
I want you to be free enough so that if there is an opportunity to do things for the benefit of this town, you are able to do that and do them efficiently and well. And I'm not saying you're not doing that now.
Sure, I'm
It's not an attack on.
I'm not
at all.
Yeah, we know that.
I would also say that the 3 of us are quite diverse, not only of course in the parts of town and our ages and the people that we know and the history that we know and why we're here. We're very diverse. I would say that for me, I'm quite new, so I can't really speak to the question, except that I feel that for myself, it's very doable. It's very doable. I'm at a different point in my life, perhaps, than I don't have small children at home. I don't have an aging parent.
The thing I'm hearing most consistently is from the select board. It's no.
It's what?
It's no.
Yeah.
You do not want to hear anything about a 5-member select board.
That's not all true. That's why we asked the town attorney to come and tell us.
But everything I'm hearing is contrary to that. And this is a town government. It's not the right term, but the town makes the decision. it should be brought up on the warrant. And it should be put before the town, let the town vote on it.
The town is going to vote on it. Yes.
It's on the warrant.
It is on the warrant. It's been on the warrant. In fact, I moved to put it on the warrant and it went on the warrant. Okay.
So we do have Scott Weller as a new voice and Sarah Mancini as a new voice. And then we'll circle back to Mike McDermott. So Scott Weller, you are up. Let me elevate you.
Thank you, Tyler. Maybe just a pragmatic comment. You know, personally, I'm not necessarily opposed to expanding the Board of Selectmen from 3 to 5 members, but you know, for me personally, it requires a bit more research. But for a town of roughly 1,020 residents, I think the community deserves a clear explanation of the operational problem we are trying to solve before moving this quickly. So I asked myself these questions around what specific governance issues exist today that cannot be addressed with the current structure. What are the projected costs, as everyone has been discussing? What are the administrative impacts? And what are the expected benefits? And why is the town moving on this now rather than a broader community discussion and long-range planning and maybe a governance review? I think the thing that lands for me is that trust and process matters as much as the outcome. Even good ideas can create division if residents feel they are being rushed. And I think we've seen this with the SR discussions. I would encourage the board and everyone else in town to clearly articulate the need and ensure the community has enough time to fully evaluate whether this change improves representation and decision-making in a meaningful way. And that's all that I had to say today.
Thanks, Scott.
Sarah Mancini, you are up.
Sarah Mancini, as most of you know, I have a lot of opinions, so I want some facts. So you, and maybe you already answered this, it's gonna be on the warrant, so we will be talking about.
It's on the warrant. That's why it's at the public hearing now.
So that's the question, like what, so we're just pre-talking about it, basically.
This is the time for everybody to talk about any of the new things that are on, so the new ordinances.
Yeah.
And this new initiative.
Yeah.
And the questions that we're asking, some of them are coming from other community members, projected cost is one, things that y'all are asking, about, whatever, this is now the time, so.
So we're gonna have this discussion probably again on June 13th.
We could, people,
Okay.
With 200 with 200 more people at least, Sarah.
Yeah. I'm just trying to block out the appropriate amount of time.
And if there were no other new comments to be added, I know Mike McDermott wanted to make a second comment.
Thank you. You know, I don't really have a second comment aside to reaffirm what Scott was just discussing. I thought Scott articulated it really crisply, so I second that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa or comments on the initiative? Claire, come on down. I could tell you had some, you had a twinkle in your eye. Go ahead.
Listening. I just feel like the wonderment around why people may want a larger board. Some of that is a little bit answered with the fact that there were enough people to fill a petition twice. So there's enough people, at least in town, feeling like they aren't represented fully.
Or they at least want to discuss it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just think that that is a data point that people should consider, right? We have at least, 80 people 2 times that have said,
Second one was more than 80.
who have said, I would like to consider having a larger board. I don't feel like I'm fully represented or that everybody in town is fully represented. So I think that is a data point. I just want to make sure people.
Claire, I want to say, I signed the first petition because I truly believe this is an important discussion.
Yeah.
I truly do. And I've done, my own thinking on it, and I've decided one way, and it isn't that I necessarily support it now, but I support the discussion on it. And
Yeah.
that's, it's democratic, it's a small place for our communities.
Right.
What we're doing right now is very good.
Yeah, I do too, and I think it's worth people being able to talk about it and being able to ask questions and having it go to town.
Absolutely, and it's not unlike the STR discussion, you know, we had people come in. You know, it's a different kind of issue, that was gonna be a very different, that was gonna be a big change for Georgetown, there was a lot of feedback about that, and people were also concerned that that hadn't been vetted, that there wasn't enough data. So, you know, these are things that just happened with the select board, in front of the select board, so we have to consider all of these things, we have the community saying, things are moving too fast, including the short-term rental, now we have the community saying this, so we have to be cognizant of that. And we are absolutely aware that this has come twice and Lisa's efforts, and we know that there's a, you know, now we're hearing what some of the, purpose is.
Yeah.
So this is just important discussion.
Yeah, but I do think it would be great to hear from the select board, and like, if you didn't have to, if you didn't have to consider straining Tyler or paying an additional salary, wouldn't it feel good to have more people helping out? I mean, I just like you know, he said, we've heard a lot of from you guys against it, but I can't imagine being on a board and being like, I don't want any more help or any more perspective on something, like, and if your meeting is a little longer because you have 5 people giving input on something, I think that only benefits the town.
We haven't said we're against it, we've only talked about it a couple times. What we're trying to get at is, you know, all of the information, that's why we brought the town attorney in to do the rundown.
Yeah.
Because of her experience working with towns that have been in 3 and in 5.
Yeah.
So, because none of this has happened, this is the first time this is happening.
Sure. Yeah.
A part of the puzzle too is who is going to run? And
Yeah.
are we going to get people that step up from all walks of life?
Sure.
All neighborhoods of Georgetown? And if they do, that's great. It seems like there is a little bit of that building in the community now.
Yeah.
And so we need those quality people to step up to that.
Well, unfortunately, you don't have a crystal ball, so we can't make this decision based on who we think might want my short run.
But right, that's what I was gonna
The
say
amount
too,
of
is like, we
people
want to
signing
be up
up
to
to share that point.
Yeah.
I think also on the other side is that papers weren't taken out to run against Kathy and it was all happening at the same time.
Yep.
So
I don't think,
also a data point.
I don't think Kathy's election is a typical election though.
Right.
I think that happened earlier when Kathy and Jeff ran. And sort of I think at least in my mind, well, whoever won that was probably going to run again. Because why have somebody run and serve for 3 or 4 months and then not continue that? You know, she had said right from the outset that if she won, she would continue. So, yeah, I think everybody's like, let's give Kathy a chance. So why run against her? I don't think this is a typical election cycle.
Yeah.
And I mean, the data's there, but Tyler pulled it, you know, 11, since 2011, 10 were contested and 7 were uncontested. Jeff ran uncontested most of his time. Billy Plummer ran some, I mean, I talked to Billy about this, I talked to John Collins about this, I'm trying to get all the viewpoints.
Yeah.
They really are, it's important for the town, this is the time to have the discussion.
I think that like when I've had conversations with people who have been on the board, and I ask a simple question like, is it possible for someone with a family, a small family, you know, small children at home and a full-time job to really do something like this and do it with fidelity for the town, right? I don't get good responses. It's a lot like, there's a lot of meetings and there's a lot of this and there's like, and so for someone like my husband, for example, he would be an amazing person who would love to contribute to the town, but he works 60 hours a week as an engineer in Lewiston. He doesn't have the ability to dedicate as much time as what you guys have been putting in, right? But he would love to. So if the board was larger, if things were more spread out, I just wonder if we would be able to fit other people in. Anyway.
Thank you, Claire. Tiffany and then Bob, because Bob, you've already spoken. Tiffany Dumas.
Hi, give it so much.
So I don't have anything really profound to say other than I'm a native citizen saying, yes,
I would love to join in and help you all at some point in time. I think you're doing a great job now. You've done an excellent job of listening to us, hearing us, and implementing for us. And I don't know what the right answer is between 3 and 5. I didn't realize there was much of a cost, although I don't think $10,000 is much in the scope of the whole realm of anything, but it could aid and it could earn us, more ability to be proficient in things. But what I might say is there are a number of people that are very, like the 82 people that signed the petition that have such a passionate interest in the town to maybe serve in some way, but not necessarily exactly on the board. Like, is there an assistant to the board? Could we research some things for you? Can we take a few things off your plate?
You've heard
You
us,
don't have to be.
you've heard us say before, we have all kinds of volunteer opportunities. At times I've said, we have retired urban planners, we have retired, grant writers. We could tap into those people resources and we'd love to.
And I think, it's nice to have, just in a perfect world, 5 people conversing and sharing different ideas instead of maybe 3 or 2. And it's not from any experience that we found. I feel like the last meeting was really good. But maybe make something to put a little bit more diversity in there. There's just 82 people that say we need more diversity in there and that feel passionately about it. And how can we figure out like how to maybe help you out or raise a hand and say, I can't run, but I'd like to do this.
Absolutely.
I'd love to run, but I've got 3 businesses, 2 kids, and it's crazy. I don't think I'm the right candidate at this minute in my life, but maybe in 5 years, watch out. But here we are. So that's all I have to say. I don't know what the right answer is.
Well, we appreciate you showing up to meetings lately, Tiffany. Thanks. Yeah.
Once again, this is a comment that's directed at Tyler. I spent, like Bob Tribona, a lot of my adult life in the military. When I left the military, I went into municipal government, as a public works director. For 10 of those 11 years, I've worked in towns bigger than this town, but towns that had 5 selectmen and a town manager. If we go to 5, if we went, I'd be the first person in line coming to the selectmen and doing what you've done, so to make his position a town manager, because you're not going to be able to keep it as a town administrator. And I think that's just something that's a reality.
Well, that's what the
5 select board will keep it busy. He's already busy, believe me, in Washington since.
Any more questions? And that is, to Bob's point, that is something that the town attorney discussed at the last meeting. And so y'all can tune into that if you'd like to hear that discussion. Any more questions for Lisa, comments, statements? Anybody on Zoom?
No, oh, Jess Weller.
Jess Weller.
Hi, one more thing. I just want to reiterate, this is moving so fast. We are going so slow with the short-term rentals. We're going so slow with everything else. This is moving so fast. My recommendation is people to vote it down, not to say that we're not going to do it, but so that we can spend the time investigating these other towns that are doing it, so we can investigate the costs, so we can do the research to make sure that it's what is best for Georgetown. Okay, 8% of people signed a petition. That is a great thing, but is it the best thing for Georgetown? That is all.
All right, thank you. All right. All right, and with that, thank you all for remaining engaged, both in person and online. This public hearing is officially closed. We are now going to move into a select board meeting. For any of you who are diehard fans, and welcome, Nicholas, thank you. And thank you so much for being here.
Aria?
Yes.
5 minutes.
We have got a 5-minute break. How many?
And folks, we're about to reconvene momentarily, so thank you for your patience. Oh, folks, we have rearranged the tables here so we can get the select meeting kicked off and we'll be going momentarily.
Thank you, Kate.
We are unmuted so folks can hear us.
All right, we are unmuted and we're ready to go. Calling the select board meeting to order at 9:30 and
9:28.
9:28, thank you. And we are both online again and in the DCS gym. Thank you to the school and Mr. Knobber and all of those who helped set us up and will break us down. I don't know if we have any moments of silence. We do have a celebration. Caleb Smith was here tonight. And this was his first meeting. He grew up in Georgetown. He's moved back and he's having a baby tomorrow. If all works out. So he was in the front row at our ordinance hearing. And congratulations to him and his family. Do we have public comment? Is there any people? Last man standing, last woman standing. Come on, you did not have enough time with us.
We have a short-term rentals.
Yes, we can. Watch out. Box number two, go here for that.
I know.
They're gonna do that out. All right. Okay, thank you for adding some levity to this. We're gonna move on if there's, yes.
So with items to be added to the
Yes.
agenda, there is one that I added, an appointment certificate for Angie Mead, provided that we go forward with that reappointment.
Okay. And that's so added. And we have yes.
And I will just note that the Board of Assessors meeting, we do have work from Bill Van Tynen. However, we are going to defer that until June 9th.
Yes.
When it came in the way it did, there was not enough time to notify folks in writing.
Right.
And so June 9th will be the night we take up a school of abatement, so just be prepared.
We're on it.
We need to do those.
We do. Well, he was busy with the Peterson appeal and.
We had to wait until Bill got the analysis done, and we did not get analysis until last Thursday, and again with a holiday weekend.
It's been a month. And we've had I know, but he's been tied up with.
Because he came around our house this morning, someone did, not him. Checking solar panels that they were permitted a year ago, so.
Yeah.
They're a year behind, but they got them this morning.
And while I recognize months, I would also say that when Tom Sheehan's abatement came in, for example, in December, there was no way I was bringing Bill Van Tynen to go down to the icy coast.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
he has made site visits but on the 9th, just be prepared for a half an hour to an hour of abatements.
And as we've said all along, we've had a number of abatement requests that Bill has dealt with, and that has obviously now it's reflected in the budget line, and so, you know, we're addressing those things, but to be continued on June 9th. We have two sets of minutes, one from our regular meeting and one from our very short regular meeting that then
Special meeting.
had an executive session, exactly, special meeting May 21st that was public, then executive session and very briefly public again. So I'll entertain a motion regarding the minutes of May 12th.
I would move that we accept the minutes of May 12th as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
And as unanimous.
And I move to approve the minutes of May 21st.
And I second.
All those in favor?
Thank you.
And Tyler, let's talk about the continuing items.
So just the continuing items, I did pass along the Natural Resources Protection Act permit for Bear Neck Island, where they're looking to put in a dock pier ramp with 2 floats. So again, that's more just an advisory bit to keep the focus on the select board informed, but
Yeah.
at the last regular meeting, we didn't have it in final form for you guys, so I just wanted to make sure you have it.
We have all the correspondence. I don't think we need to talk about that, given the hour, but, it's listed there and it's in the packet. Does anybody have any questions about the correspondence? And then we'll talk to Tyler. Hearing none, go ahead, Tyler.
So the one thing I just note is that there is an updated transfer station brochure, and this
Thank
is
you.
a piece that is worth just talking about briefly.
Great, go ahead.
I received a phone call about a week and a half ago from the Bath landfill. An inflatable had been disposed of in the Georgetown transfer station that then inflated while the Bath attendant was removing it.
And just so you know, in case you don't know what an inflatable is, it's talking about an inflatable boat.
Yes, an inflatable boat that then launched the individual 6 feet into the air. And they discovered flares as well that if had they ignited, could have caused a lot of issues. So the transfer station has updated their brochure to reiterate some of the items that are forbidden. And it'd just be worth noting that to dispose of those flares, the town has had to absorb a $500 fee. And so it's a cost of doing business, but it's business we shouldn't have to be doing, so.
Yeah, please. Yes, and so please be mindful of what you're bringing to the transfer station and make sure that it is not a safety issue. If you have any questions, you can ask Jim, Frank, or Scott.
And it says it in the brochure.
Great.
Which you can get at the town office.
Okay.
And at the transfer station.
And just a reminder of the hours, we did have an incident where somebody came in not from this town on Friday and dumped their trash. And so we're just gonna have to be very vigilant about that to ensure that at least it's only our residents and guests using the transfer station here in town. All right, and moving on to committee updates. Kathy, would you like to go?
Yes,
please?
I'll start with the solid waste committee because they had had a very lively couple of weeks with rafts getting airborne and all. They are noticing a increase in transfer station activity. I think it's the summer rush. They had a meeting on May 3rd that I attended. A new reminder, propane tanks must be empty and placed to the side of the metal pile at the request of a hauler, who's Mike. And they're putting up new signage. They had an incident last Monday where someone had accidentally thrown out a family heirloom. And the solid waste, the transfer station was closed, but they were able to dumpster dive and find the heirloom, which was really good news. And the other really good news was at that point, the inflatable boat was probably in the container and they didn't set it off in Georgetown, so we were very lucky. This year, the transfer station will be closed on Saturday, July 4th and open on Sunday and Monday. At the request of the select board, they said.
Yeah, we did that, I think last year too.
Okay.
Yes.
And they also had 2 different incidences of people going into the transfer station on Monday, May 18th, that were caught on security cameras. In one case, it was 2 gentlemen, I'm not sure gentleman is the right word, but 2 men who went shopping at the mall and took quite a bit of stuff out. And the other case wasn't clear what he was doing. They have it all on camera and they're trying to figure out what they were. I also attended the Town-Owned Property Management Board on May 19th. They're moving their meetings from the 3rd Tuesday to the 3rd Monday in June, July, and August, still at 4 p.m. And this is because they have during the summertime, they have other things going on with their work. So Mondays are better than Tuesdays. They moved and approved to do a temporary fix on the pothole that opened up at 5 Islands. They had received a bid for $3,970 approximately from Savoy and Sons. And it's going to be done as soon as possible. They said permit by rule, they can jump the permitting process, the state permitting process by doing that. They're getting routine maintenance on the hoist at 5 Islands Wharf. and have a quote for $200. The electrician was coming out that week, which is probably this week, to do electrical upgrades and maintenance of electrical systems in the buildings on the ward. And they moved and approved the lease for Malden Island. The rep is coming into the town office to sign it sometime soon, so they've left it with us.
And it's just worth noting with their lease, historically, the lease had been going up $100 a year. They decided just to put it at a flat rate for the 5 years at a higher rate, so the town is getting some more revenue, but not at the point where it's putting a hardship on Malden Island.
Great. I only had 2 meetings and they were both on the same night. The 20th, Wednesday, the 20th. I have the school board and the planning board. The planning board meeting started at 7 and it was done by 7:33. It was incredible. We all wanted to hang up, so it was so unusual. There was just the one application for a new property down on Snowman. He joined us by Zoom on the sailboat. He was sailing up. It was pretty cool. The school board meeting was great. If their next meeting, they'll have the audit. The audit will be available, except for the building and systems audit, which is not complete. The boiler is always an issue. They flagged that. The lighting project, they're gonna start delivering some of the supplies to the parking lot across the street, and then it will start on June 8th. I'm not sure about the town office lighting project, but maybe it'll happen in tandem.
Something we'll inquire on because actually our contract's at October,
Okay,
so I'm all for earlier, but we're
Yeah.
budgeted for next fiscal year.
okay, school will get started June 8th.
We're close to the end of the fiscal year, so it'll be in the next fiscal year.
They had a variety show, which I missed, but I wish I had done. It was almost like a talent show. They had an art auction and some food. They called it dinner and a show. The school raised $800 in donations, and from the art sales. The school's current social worker will be joining the next school year as a guidance counselor. 1 day a week as a social worker and 2 days a week as a guidance counselor. Everybody's really excited about that. The pre-K kindergarten teacher hiring is going well. They're excited about the candidates. And we had a quick conversation about the bell-to-bell cell phone ban and how that will be affecting elementary school, but it seems like not much, because the students aren't carrying around cell phones, so it's great. And that's all I have.
Okay, the Board of Appeals is very busy right now. They're going to have they had a site visit on the 12th, as I recall, or was that the 15th? The 15th, it was a Friday, the 15th, related to the upcoming hearing on May 28th. That's a public hearing that will be at 7 o'clock. And we don't have a lot of Board of Appeals hearings. Scott Weller, you heard from him earlier tonight. He's the chair of that. And we have a lot of dedicated volunteers that will conduct that hearing. And so that will occur and we will find out. And it's gonna be on Zoom and in the town office. And so we'll just make sure that it's ready to go. And I think it is. So Tyler's giving me thumbs up. The rec committee is meeting this week on the 27th, earlier than they ordinarily would because I can't remember perhaps I can't remember why they're meeting a week early. Must be scheduling conflicts. And
Mark Donovan from the town
Yeah.
management board said he had been contacted by somebody asking about the 4th of July celebrations. That he is also on the community center, has worked on it in the past. Community center is under, the committee is not at full strength right now.
Right.
And
I wondered about this, so
Yeah.
I'm glad we're talking about this, because rec could help out. I just don't know.
I think
If they're gonna-
it's gonna have to be someone, because Judy still, no, Don, Mark was not sure, he was a little flustered. Just
Yeah.
because right now it's kind of.
Has an email gone out about this already, Tyler? About getting some help? I thought there was something that went out.
Not from the town. The
Not from the
community
town.
center's been working on trying to figure out whether or not, what
Yeah.
their plans are. frankly, with the prep work for today, I didn't get a chance to ask Angie how their meeting went Thursday.
Nobody, and
It
no.
is on our radar.
Yeah, it is on the radar. I remember you saying something and really important, this is the 250th year, right? So it would be great if the community could come together. Where's Tiffany? Yeah, right? So let's talk this up, and try to give the GCC some help and see if Rec can, join in. And so, thank you for bringing that up. And I assume that it sounds like they want some help. Is that?
They do.
I don't want to step on toes.
Yeah, and I think it was just a couple, I don't remember who else was there.
Yeah.
Over Barry and Todd and me.
Okay, you, Tom, you, Mark, and Todd.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not much of a committee.
And I believe the community center was gonna look at reaching out to some folks they know that they were gonna ask to try and step up to the plate. If they didn't, I think there is a plan to talk with Rec about what it takes to host a parade, because as we've discussed and as we did last week, Ariane,
Yes,
it is the 250th. So if there's a
That's
year to not do a parade, it's
It's on a Saturday.
and right, and we don't want to skip this year if we can, if we can show Georgetown off
And
on Saturday.
And I think where we left it was that if we didn't have any headwind or progress before our meeting on the 9th, we were gonna touch base.
Yes.
As a board about what may or may not need to be done. So-
Yes, and I know Sarah Mancini sent out a email to, Sarah's gone, to some of the, I don't know who all, it included parents of kids of school age here, asking about floats and drivers and that kind of thing. So, there's pockets of people, but they just need to be corralled into a plan. So, yes, thank you for bringing that up. It's really important. All right, that's probably enough for committee updates. If we missed something, somebody can let us know.
So for my update, I would just note that candidates night is next Monday on Zoom.
June 1st.
Yes, on June 1st at 6 o'clock. We are going to be sending out that link that day. Candidates will be able to attend. If folks can't attend at home that are candidates, we do have additional accommodation where we can help them. Election day is June 9th, 8 to 8 in this gymnasium. The 4 municipal offices as well as the party primaries for 2 parties. Town meeting is June 13th at 9 a.m. I wanted to flag that tomorrow at 9:30, in about 12 hours, John Collins and I will be meeting with Pine Tree Engineering and folks from Kelp to talk about the Flying Point project. There's a desire, recognizing we got to get through budget and town meeting, but with us only on the hook for the engineering at this stage, we want to see if we can get that project kicked into high gear. And so tomorrow morning, we'll be talking about that. I will be finishing up the rest of the day here at town office after tomorrow. Thursday, however, I am going to have a remote morning and then take the afternoon off. My mom's having surgery on Friday, and frankly, that's the most important thing.
It sure is.
The last day to request absentee ballots would be June 4th, Thursday. It's the Thursday before the election. I would note that there are some special circumstances that kick in. If you have questions, call Angie. Planning licenses expire June 30, new ones available in July. That was already mentioned by Kathy, but Pat Dow, the assessor's assistant, Bill's assistant Pat is in town. So if you get a call and says, there's a guy taking pictures of my house, odds are he's got an assessor on the side of his vehicle. And then I would just make a couple other quick notes. I'm waiting some final documents related to the audit. With the way things are right now in town office, I might not have those as quickly as I wanted to get them off to the printers for town report. That said, my goal was to get all of the materials, if we don't have bound copies, up onto the website, so residents, like we did last year, but we waited for the printed ones to come in.
Yes.
But that is something we're waiting for and in a holding pattern. And then lastly, as we try to at most meetings, we have 2 Board of Appeals alternate vacancies, 1 on the FAC, 3 Harbor Committee alternate vacancies, 1 Planning Board alternate vacancy, as well as a desire for an ACO and a deputy shellfish warden.
So,
That's pretty impressive.
yeah,
If we're talking about filling positions. That's important, and I think it's important also, it's important to get people involved as much as possible, but I think it's also important to realize a lot of people have a lot of other commitments, and they vote for us to represent them, so.
there's a lot of places people could jump in. And so thank you, Tyler, for the rundown of what those are. And maybe on the June 9 committee, we'll just hit that again, because I've had a couple of people talk to me about vacancies on committees. We've been trying to encourage participation, so thank you, and thank you for your comments, Kathy. And Tyler, I just want to say you're doing a great job in your role as town administrator. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we, especially on nights like this, you've had a full work day, and then, you're still going strong. So almost 10 o'clock. All right, the MOUs, go ahead.
3 or 5 select board members. Don't ever go to 14. I was on a 14-person school board. Our longest meeting ended at 2:30 in the morning.
Is that
Had to throw that out there. Oh, yes.
That was 4.
2:30 in the morning.
School.
But, and we,
Yeah,
so I just had to point out, 14 is too much. Anything else?
good to know. Noted.
All right,
And we have no business.
old business, the MOUs, is there any update, on the MOUs? We've got the school in town, we know that's gonna be worked on after town meeting. The tri-party, is there an update on that one?
There's no updates on
On
any
any
of
of it?
this.
Great, we're gonna move in. The comp plan check-in, we've talked about that a few times. And because of the press of business, we're parking that until after town meeting. All right, the new business, we've got, go ahead.
So the first item would be the accepting of the assessing agent's proposal. Bill Van Tynen had reached out. We had asked him to come back with a proposal to keep him on for another year of assessing. We had budgeted $20,000 on the assessing line. Bill's proposal came back not to exceed 25, with the exception that if we have items that go back to the county board
Right,
or
for appeal.
court, then there would be additional pieces.
Yes,
I would recommend that the board make a motion to accept this proposal, and then we'll go from there. I would say the board could counter. I think this is a very fair and reasonable proposal.
we're not gonna counter this because, we need him. And this is a very reasonable counter proposal from him, a proposal actually.
So is there a motion?
Is there a motion?
I move to accept the accepting agent's proposal and to increase by 5,000 on the warrant. Don't need it?
That's already taken care
Oh,
of,
okay.
included as if you were going to do this, so we're good.
Okay.
And I'll second.
All those in favor? And that's unanimous time.
Perfect. And so now,
Can we drop down? So I don't think we wanna go right yet to the town warrant, because do we have,
I mean, we can do those other 2 things too, and then we can jump into the warrant.
yeah, because we have the one change, that I think we're gonna discuss about the working waterfront. So I'd like to move to appoint, Angie Mead as the town clerk and tax collector.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
And just to clarify, for a 1-year appointment, so from July 1 to June 30.
Yes,
And we would love to extend that further, but that is what the town meeting will was when they moved it to appointed, so.
so that is why it's limited to a year.
So she will continue in her elected position until June 30th.
Correct.
And does that mean will her benefits or pay change at all at that point?
We'll have to, address that as an HR issue, and we will, and that, so yes, we will do that in an executive session.
But
Yes.
come July 1, the 3% COLA, provided the town meeting approves it, would go into effect.
Yes, so good question, Kathy, and thank you for that COLA, reminder.
And on election day, our town clerk and deputy town clerk are going to be tied up with the bulk of the day in here. Some elections are very quiet, when 2 parties have contested primaries on multiple levels, plus the local. It would really make sense to vote to close town office that day. Obviously, we have a select board meeting that night, so we would still meet for that purpose. But in terms of residents coming in and wanting to register their car, they're not gonna be able to either way. So I'd be happy to be present all day and tell them, come back tomorrow, or we could just let them know ahead of time and save them a trip.
I think it makes sense to close the office that day. I'm not sure we need a motion, but it probably makes sense just so that it's official. So I'll entertain a motion to close the office that day, given, the amount of work that needs to be done.
I move that we close the office on election day, June 9th, and that we post the closure in advance, cover
Perfect.
inappropriate channels.
Yes, thank you. I'll second that.
Sorry.
That, okay, I'll second it. All those in favor?
And that is unanimous, thank you.
Unanimous.
So now we probably want to go to this, so there's a draft warrant that was in your packet, it was also in the packet for folks online. I imagine we probably want to go to a designation of any select board positions on articles. That's probably the avenue where if there's a draft warrant article that we want to remove. I don't think there's anything we want to add tonight, but were there any items in the draft warrant that was sent out that the board wants to keep, to cut, to take a position on? The school committee articles, I would know, all have a recommendation. Historically, the town articles don't. However, there are other towns where it's every one of their articles are covered that way. So I just would open this up to the board for thoughts based on our 3.5 hours of public comment.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
We
All right.
want to talk about the working waterfront.
Yeah, let's talk about the working waterfront,
Article 22.
Article 22. So we heard the feedback, we followed up with Pat Burns and John Jones, who were here representing Working Waterfront Group. And, Katie, you finished up that discussion, so I'll let you finish this part up.
Okay, we talked a little bit about editing and then quickly realized that it should not be edited at this point as an ordinance, that it would need to be pulled from the town warrant and they were
Okay with that as a
yeah,
document.
yeah, they were okay with it.
So we're gonna pull it. So we're gonna
Pulling it from
strike it from the town warrant.
and then the select board could move it forward as a proclamation instead of an ordinance with a few edits.
Sure. Do we need a motion for that?
And I'm hearing it as a motion to strike the Working Waterfront ordinance from the article.
Yeah. Striking Article 22, the working waterfront ordinance from the town warrant,
From the draft.
from the draft, yes.
And who seconded?
I'll second it, or I'll let you second it.
Okay, I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Annie Type?
And just with a side note that we did discuss this with Pat Burns and John Jones. And the compromise would be to have this as a, we'll add this as an agenda item. For either probably the next meeting, not June 9, but thereafter.
Do they want to work on it again and try to present it as an ordinance another time?
We did, yes, we did tweak some of the language today, but it won't be an ordinance for this year, perhaps, a few years down the road, but that's a good question, yeah. Proclamation is what we discussed that the select board would take up on a future agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's removed. And
Yeah.
then, go ahead, were you gonna say something else?
No.
All right, and on any of there's a draft warrant, are there any of the articles that the board would like to take a position on?
Do we want to speak to the citizens petition? Or do we want to just keep hands off on that, let the town not have our thoughts?
And do we, I think you just said this, but looking for precedent, have we in the past, do we usually say the select board agrees or the select board disagrees?
When we put something on the warrant, we obviously agree because we put it on the warrant. I think the one question mark would be with the citizens petition, because it didn't originate with us. And so that it may be unfair to the town if we don't take a position, but we may decide, either way, it's up to us tonight. Go ahead, Tyler.
And I'd say that individual board members, if this board didn't take a position, nothing would preclude you from getting up at town meeting and making your case. If there was a position taken, then there would be a statement on there, the select board recommends yes, or the select board recommends no. I would note again, Georgetown hasn't been doing that, at least in the years I've been here and in the immediate warrants before me.
Have there been any citizens petitions
Not,
since you've been here?
not since I've been here. I would note that again, Town of Topsom, their warrant actually includes their finance committee recommendation and the select board recommendation. So residents have more info. That's not something we've done. And frankly, I appreciate all the work of the FAC, but on 57 articles, I don't think that's, especially the way some of them get bundled in together.
Yeah.
I think we're in consensus on what we would do with the citizens petition, but if we aren't consistently doing it all the way through, it looks like we're targeting the citizens petition, which in fact we are.
Well, are we? I don't
It's
know.
different.
It is, it's very different, especially that it's, we are the select board, and this is
Yeah.
a citizen petition affecting the select board. And so is it, I mean, it is appropriate for us to have our opinion, but do we really, is it appropriate for us to put it on the warrant? I don't know.
Well, we put it's on the warrant. It's on the warrant, and it came to this process outside of our process,
I mean,
right?
our recommendation.
Yeah, our recommendation. So we can do that. It's been done in other towns when there's been citizens petitions, or we can not do that. What it keeps happening to me, I don't know if it keeps happening to you, especially when I go to the dump, is what's the select board position on the citizens petition? And I have not, because we need to hear from the town. We need to hear from public comment. What we knew, we heard all along, some feedback. We knew there were 81 to 87, let's say, people who had signed it.
But
Along the way,
but
some people,
I signed it, and that didn't mean I supported it, but then I thought it was worth a discussion.
yeah, and I had others say the same thing, that they didn't know we didn't ask for the petition, or that we didn't ask for help. So that was a couple of people that said that, and then others said they signed it because they felt like they should. But they weren't gonna vote for it, so I don't like being pigeonholed at the transfer station and not being able to say, and now we've got some more information.
I'm comfortable
So
with
I'm
making a
comfortable.
statement there.
Do you, and does the board necessarily, you could take a position, that way you can be honest at the transfer station. Doesn't necessarily need to be on the board either, but then the select board's made clear where they stand. So that's an option too, so.
I think if we're gonna take a position, we should take a position.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't wanna say, we have a position, but we're not gonna tell you what it is.
So do you want to take the position or?
I will say that, what we've heard tonight, I want to be very clear that I think the citizens petition process, and the right of voters to bring it forward for consideration is really important. We had a good discussion tonight, I thought. But I think it's our responsibility, as elected officials, to discuss the long-term governance implications of this open and honestly. And so we were able to do that, but there weren't, we only had a fraction of people here. We don't know how many are coming to town meeting. I guess my concern about this is whether Georgetown, it's not, could we operate with 5? Sure, we could. And some towns do.
We need to, to me, it's like big government. Do we need big government?
Do we need to increase our government? My concern is about the major change that this is proposing, and that I don't believe it's received the level of public discussion or analysis, community vetting, that a decision of this magnitude deserves. We saw that blow up with STR. And we are hearing from people pulling me aside saying, why are you doing this? And my hands are tied because I'm not doing it, but I'm also not trying to stop it.
Yeah.
We've received a lot of feedback, both positive and both supportive of it and not supportive of the timing of it. So I think that I think it's moving too fast without the necessary community benefit for such a major change. I talked to Billy Plummer, I talked to John Collins. Neither one of them is supporting this, and it's 300 years of our government. So I mean, they've been here longer than me, and I take a lot from that.
Government, and then I don't think we should grow government unless we need to. And if maybe we need to now, and that's the voters can decide, but it's not the way George.
Is it appropriate right now for?
You're out of order, Bob. You can talk in public comment. We're not gonna make exceptions because we like you.
No, I was just questioning. Okay, thank you. So.
Were you gonna say something?
So soon after the STR ordinance and having there be questions about conflict of interest, I'm just very hesitant to weigh in heavily on a select board decision as a select board member. I feel like I don't really want to have my opinion sway town meeting. Although I hear you that it's our responsibility, but I also want to let the town
Sure.
come to their
Yeah.
decision.
I expect somebody will ask me about it as the candidate. It's just a, it's
Yeah.
a good issue. So I'm gonna have a voice.
Yeah.
About it, and I realize it tools work. No, so I decided to get this position.
Yeah, there is. I don't think that we should.
Yeah, let's not.
recommend
So let's,
personally, and I don't, I mean, you guys can vote for the whole thing, but I don't.
yeah,
So along those lines, we're deleting one proposed article. Were there any other articles that we felt needed to be tweaked?
so just
Because I
to be
am-
clear, just to be clear, the select board is not going to take an official position, that's what we're deciding. Just so that people taking notes can be aware of that.
But don't you think each one of us can speak for ourselves?
I think, yes.
I think
can
we
speak-
should, yeah.
And you, I agree with you, it's likely to come up for candidates night, it did your last candidates night, you and Jeff both answered that question. So, okay. All right, so that's what we have decided to take no position on any of these articles, although,
Well, except for deleting. one,
except for
which wasn't-
deleting the one, that's right. And, again, making sure that that comes before us on a later agenda, go ahead,
Can
Tyler.
we get a motion to direct me to renumber this warrant real quick?
So moved. Town administrator we're directing the town administrator to renumber the warrant. And that does not need to be done
It
tonight.
actually does, because the last page has a number and I need your signatures before
Okay.
you're gone, so.
Okay, great.
I thought I saw EMS Billy, it's on here, right?
It's on,
It's an advisory.
Yeah.
it's right before all the,
Oh, 15, yeah, so the advisory article, yeah,
Which is completely non-binding,
Right.
it just gives us the chance to have a discussion.
okay, yeah.
So there was a motion to renumber though, was there a second to that?
Second,
Okay.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
we already voted on the proposed new
Yeah.
warrants.
the other ordinance changes are good.
The draft warrant is with those comments and decisions. I think it's ready to go.
So the
Once it's
last
renumbered.
motion that I would ask for you guys, from you folks, not guys, is to approve the warrant for town meeting as amended. And then
As revised,
either or.
Yeah.
And then what we'll do is give me 5 minutes to renumber some things and we'll get some copies to sign.
that sounds good.
I move that we, adopt the warrant as revised and renumbered. Well, that's part of the.
I second.
All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Perfect.
Well,
Thank you, Jeff. We love the wow factor. Public comment.
All right, and we are ready now for public comments. Is there, I think Bob Rubino had a comment.
It can wait, because it doesn't need to take up the time right now. I was gonna mention that. If you go to a 5-member board. You go to the town manager, the selectmen should look at the responsibility or the authority that they lose. They would probably not be hiring or firing, they would be
That's right.
doing evaluations or whatever.
Yeah.
So that just goes back to. Your administrator, if you went to 5, is gonna have to be the town manager.
Yeah.
People listening now should see what he's doing right now. And understand what he's just doing as a town administrator, so no problem.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any other from our 2 other participants?
Curious on going back to correspondence. Do you see the warning letter?
So the Shellfish Committee failed to fill out a form properly last year, and a year later, the Department of Marine Resources, when confirming the number of licenses based on how that form was filled out, let us know that we can't do that again, or they'll send another letter.
Okay. Thank you.
And Scott Weller had his hand up. Did we lose you, Scott?
One more item. I just wanted to reiterate that we have 2 alternate vacancies on the Board of Appeals, the A team. And we would love to get some fine folks if they're interested in learning a bit more about ordinances in the town and supporting your fellow residents when it comes to their appeals. Please reach out to Tyler. We'd love to have you on the Board of Appeals as an alternate.
And I will say that typically that is a lesser, it's a lighter lift. I've served on the Board of Appeals, and like Scott, right after I started serving, we had a hearing, but it was, we did it, and there's some great experience on there. And so thank you, Scott, for reminding us of the 2 vacancies on the BOA. Any other public comment on Zoom? Okay. Great. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn at 10:08.
And I second it. All those in favor?